Tsunade Senju was more than a little pissed. In all of the years that she had been alive, she had yet to accomplish the things that she truly wished to do. Sure, she was a powerful kunoichi that could kick anybody's ass in all of the Land of Fire, but that isn't what she truly wanted. No, what she had always wanted was a family to be there and congratulate her when she succeeded, a man to hold her in his arms and shower her with love, and a child that she could hold on to, train, and show him or her how much she cared for him or her. She had read in some of the oldest texts inside of the Senju clan compound about how when a Senju or Uzumaki was around the one that they were destined to be with, their mate, their body would react. When she had read this, she took her student Shizune and headed out into the world, hell bent on finding that one person that was practically made for her. But to no avail. She walked through the land of fire, wind, lighting, earth, water, and almost all of the minor countries trying to find that one special person, but to no avail. She had never once felt that supposed feeling of love at first sight, no matter how hard she tried. She had even tried to force the feeling to arise with Dan. But even then she knew that she was just trying to fool herself. Dan was a nice guy, but she knew deep down that he wasn't the one for her. He was far too soft, and he didn't have that wild personality that Tsunade secretly wanted. Soon, though, her Sannin traveling rights expired and the third Hokage ordered her to come back and take over the hospital. He had even promised to add a medical ninja training portion to the academy for people who wished to become medical ninja. Now she was stuck in her same routine. Wake up, eat breakfast, go to the hospital all day, then go home, talk to Shizune, eat dinner, go to sleep. It was driving her crazy. She started wondering why she couldn't just have the child without the man. It would be so much easier anyways. Then it hit her like a brick: artificial insemination. It was the perfect way for her to have a child that she could dote on, but without the unsatisfactory sensation of having to sleep with a man that she didn't know or love. And like a gun, she was off. Walking down the street, Tsunade had a lot to think about. I'm glad I can have my own baby now, giggle giggle. But who am I going to ask to donate their semen so that I can become a mother? It can't be just anyone. They have to have all the quality of a good person, father, and also a highly skilled ninja. In that case, it really narrows my choices down, doesn't it? The only men strong enough to even qualify are Kakashi, but he's a pervert with many other character flaws. Then there is Guy. Eno. There are far too many things wrong with him to ever be considered. The only two choices left that she would consider would be Asuma and the Yodame Hokage. Asuma she considered family since he was her sensei's son, and the Yodame was currently in a relationship with the red-head whirlpool princess. Sighing in defeat, Tsunade decided she couldn't find someone to be the father of her children on an empty stomach, so ducking inside a local ramen stand to grab a bite to eat, when his search came to an end. There, putting down bowl after bowl after bowl of ramen, was the nine-tailed fox's host, and only other Uzumaki left in Konoha, besides Kushina, was Ken Uzumaki. He was not loved, but also not hated in Konoha. He had proven himself to the Hidden Leaf Village and gained a fair deal of respect from the ninja portion of the village. The civilians were still weary of him since they didn't know much on tailed beast hosts, but after a couple of years their fears died down mostly, and he was able to live a fairly normal life. That didn't matter to Tsunade. What did matter to her is that what she had learned about the hosts and the effects it had on their children, as rare as it was for a host to have children because of the innate fear most people had of them. The children usually obtained certain gifts from the tailed beast their host parents carried. The gifts Ken had received besides the giant chakra reserves that all hosts received was that his chakra regenerated very quickly. Something like that was very useful to a ninja, but that wasn't what Tsunade was interested in though. Ken had received a second gift from his jest that Tsunade knew would be able to keep her baby alive longer. That gift was his body's ability to regenerate. She had read reports on how he would receive injuries that would kill or cripple normal ninjas for life, but these injuries only kept Ken down for a week at most. Why didn't I think about this before? He is kind and humble because of the way he grew up. He is a powerful ninja. Even without the Kyuubi's help, he's very handsome with large muscles, a rugged face, and long unruly hair. But most importantly, his genetic material will benefit my baby the most in the long run. Now my baby will almost definitely survive a long life, even if he decides to become a ninja. All I have to do is convince Ken to give me some of his semen and I'll be a mother in 9 months, thought Tsunade, already fantasizing about her future child and all of the fun things that she was going to teach him or her. Sitting down beside the red-headed host, Tsunade cleared her throat. Hello Ken, my name is Tsunade Senju and I have come to talk to you on some very private and personal matters, spoke Tsunade, trying to sound as professional as possible about something that was completely personal. Ken, just noticing someone was beside him, looked up from his noodle to see one of the legendary Sannin speaking to him. Okay, what is it you need to speak to me about, Lady Senju? Was his reply. He liked to be as friendly as possible since it usually got people to warm up to him quicker. Tsunade, seeing no real way to make it sound any better, decided to just come out with it and see what happened. Ken, as you know, I am the last of the Senju clan and also single with no child. The single part doesn't really bother me that much since I have had time to deal with it. My problem comes in the fact that I have never had a child, and my one dream growing up was to have a big family. After my good friend Dan died, I gave up on ever having a family, but lately I have wanted to try again. That is why I have come to you, spoke Tsunade with a firm look in her eyes. Now Ken may not have been the brightest bulb in the pack, but to any man that sounded like a confession. Responding as quickly as he could, Ken tried to find out what she meant. Well, I hope you do have a family since I too have also wanted to start a family, but with all the missions I take I doubt I will ever get the chance anytime soon. After that, Ken looked a little down. He knew that it would be hard to find a woman to love him and to also bear his children. Tsunade noticed the downcast look and knew she had him just where she wanted him. Well, I believe we could find a way to help each other out then with our mutual family problem, spoke Tsunade with more pep in her step. She knew that she was going to get what she wanted, without a doubt. Ken, looking up and wondering where this conversation was going, asked, "And how are we going to do that?" Ken was starting to think that the Tsunade Senju, the woman that every man fantasized about, was going to ask him to have a one-night stand with him. Tsunade smiled, and then replied, "Have you ever heard of artificial insemination?" It wasn't something that she personally liked since it was sort of like the twisted experiments that her old teammate did, but she also knew that it was natural in a way, so she got over it. Shaking his head no, Tsunade explained that by taking the semen and injecting it into the female egg, a child could be conceived even when sex hadn't occurred. The process wasn't that difficult, and after the egg that had been placed inside of the woman, it would grow naturally. After explaining the process, Ken decided that he would be more than happy to donate his sperm to Tsunade if she agreed to let him spend time with their son. Tsunade wasn't happy about that but agreed. She knew her child would have hated her for keeping away possible the only other relative they had. After they got done eating, they made their way to the hospital where she could implant Ken's seed into herself. When Tsunade got home, she saw Shizune making them something to eat. Tsunade kind of felt bad about Shizune since she felt she was the one that had kept her from meeting the man that she would fall in love with just so she could take care of her in her depressed state. She also felt bad for making Shizune cook and clean as well since she was terrible at that sort of thing. "Hello, Tsunade-sama. Where have you been? It is getting dark," spoke Shizune, as she looked behind her to see her absolutely glowing teacher and friend. She had heard her teacher squeal about something this morning and then head out quickly. She was curious as to what it was that caused these effects. "Guess what, Shizune?" spoke Tsunade with the biggest grin that she had ever had on her face. It was actually kind of scary, which was the reason Shizune took a few steps back so that she didn't get caught in some bipolar attack. "What happened, Tsunade? You left very early this morning and even skipped your shift at the hospital. The Hokage was contemplating sending Anbu looking for you, but I convinced him that if you had been captured there would at least be lots of collateral damage to the village," spoke Shizune with a sigh. There was more than one village that they had been kicked out of for because Tsunade got drunk and then started using her super strength recklessly. "I had the best idea I have ever had this morning, and long story short, I am going to be having a baby." Tsunade practically squealed as she pulled a shell-shocked Shizune into a bone-crushing hug. Shizune looked like a deer caught in some headlights while Tsunade looked like she was drunk with her overly happy face. "Wait a second, Tsunade. Are you telling me that you ran off this morning and did that with some man you didn't even know, just so you could have a baby?" asked Shizune incredulously. She knew that her master had wanted a child of her own as well as a husband, but she wouldn't have ever guessed she would have been willing to sleep with some random man, fight the rejection process of her Senju blood, just so she could have a baby. Of course not, spoke Tsunade with a small wave of her hand like that wasn't even worth mentioning. I used artificial insemination to get pregnant. This way I can choose the best mate whose DNA will benefit my baby the most, while I won't have to do that with him, nor will I be forced to live with him either, spoke Tsunade like she had just tasted something sour, but then she gently rubbed her belly and the smile came back to her face. Shizun was shocked by what her master was telling her, but she had to admit it was a much better idea than any of them had come up with these past 10 years. It might in fact be the only chance that Tsunade had to become a mother, and though she didn't say anything, Shizun was actually giving it some thought as well. But what about the baby's biological father? Who is he, and won't he want to be a part of his child's life? Asked Shizun, seeing the annoyed look crop back up on Tsunade's face. She had obviously hit a rough spot, though she wasn't surprised. Tsunade was a bit petty in the fact that she didn't like to share. It was one of the reasons Shizun was still single. It wasn't that she and Tsunade did things together. It was just that Tsunade didn't want to be a third wheel, and the fact that Shizun was sort of a wallflower was also a factor as well. I chose Ken Uzumaki to be the father of my children, spoke Tsunade, seeing the surprised look on her student's face. Along with all of the benefits that come with having Uzumaki blood, there is also the fact that he is the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tails Fox, which gives him larger chakra reserves, quickly regenerating chakra reserves, and quick regeneration physically as well. With all of these things, my baby will surely have all he needs to succeed, spoke Tsunade as she started gushing again and rubbing her belly. Shizun was scared of when the mood swings would set in. Tsunade was already very temperamental as it was. Inside of the Uzumaki compound were two people. The first was a lovely young woman by the name of Kushina Uzumaki, and the second one was a young male by the name of Ken Uzumaki. They were both family, and unfortunately the last of their clan since it had been destroyed during the last Great Shinobi World War. Kushina was inside the kitchen trying to cook, but Ken knew that he would have to go behind her and clean up her mess, then start cooking their meal. Kushina had a lot of great qualities. It was just that cooking wasn't one of them. Ken was also wondering how he was going to break it to Kushina that she would be an aunt soon, and that he would be a father though he wouldn't be married to the mother of his child, and that he would probably only see the baby 1 week every 2 weeks or possibly just on weekends. Kushina had a history of freaking out and becoming very violent. It was one of the reasons that he suspected that her relationship with the young fourth Hokage wasn't going as well, and he also suspected that he wasn't her chosen one, and that she was just trying to force the feeling to pop up. Ken would have told her it was pointless, but he valued his life way too much. Ch-ch-ch-ch, shouted Kushina as the pot that she was cooking in started to boil over. She tried turning down the oven, but it wasn't fast enough, so now she had a big bowl of noodles boiling over onto her stove, causing steam and all kinds of crap to start to rise. So it is finally my turn, came a voice from behind her, which caused her to get irritated quickly. She turned around and saw her brother looking at her with a smirk on his face that made her want to hit him upside the head with a cast iron skillet. You know it isn't very manly for a man to be a good cook, spoke Kushina in a childish voice that bellowed how jealous she was that her brother could cook like a pro. But she would probably end up dead if she lived alone, if it wasn't for takeout. Yeah, but it is even worse for a woman to not be even able to boil noodles for homemade ramen, spoke Ken with a grin on his face, though he knew he was pushing his sister a bit too much, especially with that cast iron skillet in her hands. Kushina went to say something, or hit him with the cast iron skillet, but then a thought popped up in her head causing her to forget to give her brother brain damage. Hey, where did you go earlier? When I said I was going to make us some dinner, you all of a sudden said you needed to go somewhere and you only just got back, spoke Kushina, giving Ken the death glare. You didn't go to the ramen stand and fill up on their ramen, did you? Asked Kushina with murder in her eyes. Ken knew that he was in between a rock and a cast iron skillet place, but he had just the thing to shock Kushina out of giving him her punishment. Well, Kushina, Lady Tsunade sent for me, so yes, we did meet up at the ramen stand, but it was purely business, spoke Ken with his hands raised, showing Kushina he didn't want to die. Kushina gave Ken a look that said she didn't believe him, but she would give him the benefit of the doubt. So what did Lady Tsunade want? Asked Kushina, thinking that she would be able to catch Ken in a lie, thus getting to punish him twice as much. "To have my child," spoke Ken, instantly seeing a blank look in Kushina's eyes. "What?" asked Kushina, thinking that she had heard Ken wrong. "She asked if she could use my semen for something called artificial insemination, so that she could have a child without finding her chosen one," spoke Ken, knowing that this night wasn't going to end anytime soon. For the next few hours, Ken prepared dinner for his sister while answering the 1,000,001 questions she was shooting his way in rapid succession. It was annoying, no doubt, but he did love his sister, and he knew that after she let it slip that she had dumped the fourth Hokage, that she needed this distraction. Finally, Ken was able to placate his sister, but she went on about how she was going to talk to Tsunade and iron out all of the details on how much time she and Ken were going to get to see their nephew/niece/daughter/son, and she was going to make sure that it was plenty, or she would show the Sannin just what kind of power she was packing. After a month of waiting, Tsunade finally took a pregnancy test, and when it showed up positive, everyone in the entire village heard her shouts of happiness. Many congratulated her on her pregnancy. People were happy the Senju clan would continue. Also, people started treating Ken even better. Everyone knew about the artificial insemination, but none could really blame them. Tsunade and Ken had always wanted a family. 9 months later, as Tsunade was giving birth to her child, she kept repeating to herself that she would never tell another woman in labor to breathe continuously, because it was pissing her off. Obviously, she needed to breathe. She wasn't doing this to die. Why did they have to keep repeating themselves? She wasn't an idiot, she could remember to breathe after all. Tsunade finally got to hold her baby boy after 12 hours in the delivery room. He was so cute. He had his father's build and handsome facial features, but had her sky blue eyes, her flawless skin, and golden blonde hair that seemed to glow even in the faded room. The strange thing, in her opinion, was that he had the same exact markings as her granduncle, except instead of one on each cheek he had two, but he didn't have one on his chin, and instead of red they were a light grass green color. It was strange, but she was sure that it was probably just a Senju thing that popped up every few generations. She knew he was going to have fangirls just for being the last male Senju, but now she knew she was going to be beating them off with a stick. He was going to be powerful, something fangirls flock to, handsome, another things fangirls flock to, and rich, the most important thing fangirls flock to. Tsunade was going to have to make sure that her son didn't fall for some fangirl, or she may have to bash his head with a very heavy rock. One of the nurses took her baby out of her arms and began to take his measurements and things like that. To everyone's shock, the space in front of the woman began to swirl right before a man with an orange swirled mask came out of it and killed the nurse, right before he caught the baby in his arms. Well, now I wasn't expecting this. I had figured all of the Senju would die with you, Tsunade, but I guess I was wrong, though I may still be right if you don't do as I say, spoke the masked man as he pulled his kunai out of the nurse's head and held it above Tsunade's crying baby. "Wait, don't hurt our baby," shouted Ken, as he took a few steps towards the masked man, trying to think of anything that would save his baby from this man. "What do you want?" "I will give you anything. Just give Tsunade back out, baby," spoke Ken with tears forming in his eyes. "Well, if you say it like that, then I have no choice but to oblige you," spoke the masked man as he pulled out a small slip of paper and threw it at Ken, whom deftly caught it in his right hand. "Put that chakra suppression seal on yourself 9 tails, and the child will live," spoke the masked man. Ken didn't know what exactly was going on, but he had a good idea. The man was either here to stop the continuation of the most powerful clan in the elemental nations by killing their child, or he was here to unleash the 9 tails that was inside of him, to destroy the hidden leaf village. It wasn't much of a surprise, really. Many of the higher-ups knew that there were ninja trained to sneak into enemy village to unseal the biju that were inside of their current hosts to cause mass amounts of damage, but it had never happened to a Jinchuriki of the 9 tails before. Everyone knew he, the Yodame, and his sister Kushina were seal masters. Ken had spent all of his free time learning and creating seals that had to do with tailed beasts and their hosts. He had tried to invent a seal that would seal away the tailed beasts forever, so that they would never be sealed inside of anyone and ruin their lives ever again. Ken looked at everyone in the room and sighed a bit. He took the chakra suppression seal and put it on his chest, instantly feeling it stopping his chakra in its tracks. He looked over at the spiral masked man with hatred in his eyes right before he said, Okay, I did as you asked. Now give Tsunade our baby back. Ken didn't know how he knew, but he did know that the spiral masked man was smirking. Ken's heart did sink when the man tossed the bundle that had his newborn son inside of up into the air, but when he turned around to watch the bundle fly through the air, a hand grabbed him and pulled him into some kind of twisting spiral before he was able to try and save his son. Naruto shouted Tsunade, but she was strapped to her bed because the nurses were scared she would use her super strength on them. But luckily golden chakra chains came out of nowhere and wrapped around her baby before placing it on Tsunade's lap. Tsunade didn't need to look back because only one person had the ability to create golden chakra chains. After checking over her baby to make sure he was fine, she started shouting at everyone. What are you all still doing here? Go tell the Hokage what has happened, and that he should prepare for an attack by an unknown assailant. And the Nine Tails shouted Tsunade, looking around at the people in the room like they were idiots. Inside of one of the forests that surrounded Kanehagakure, a large puff of smoke appeared right before a giant nine-tailed fox came out with evil red eyes. Soon these eyes took on the shape of the Sharingan, and the masked man grinned behind his mask like a crazy person. "Kyuubi, you obey me now. Go forth and destroy this pathetic village. Soon you and the rest of your kind will become whole once more, and this world shall be mine," spoke the spiral masked man with a grin on his face. He watched with glee as the fox did as he ordered it to and began to run in the direction of Konoha. As Ken lay in the grass, he looked over at the giant nine-tailed fox rushing towards his home with one thing on its mind. He couldn't let it destroy the village. There was no telling what would happen to his son and Tsunade if they didn't have the village to protect them from the other villages. They would be taken and possibly used to create a new Senju clan in whatever village was able to get a hold of them. Instantly he channeled chakra through his body, and dark red chakra chains shot out of his body and began trying to restrain the Nine Tails. Ken could only hope that the Hokage was getting rid of the masked man, because he couldn't restrain Nine Tails and the masked man at the same time. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, just got done defeating the masked man and saw the Nine Tails trying to break free from dark red chakra chains. Minato knew who made those chakra chains and quickly began running in the direction they originated from until he came upon Ken Uzumaki, who was drawing a giant seal out of his own blood. "Ken, are you alright? What is going on? How did the Nine Tails escape the seal?" asked the fourth Hokage, not understanding what was going on. He was happy to see golden chakra chains starting to wrap around the Nine Tails, but he also felt a pang in his heart. "That masked man forced the Nine Tails out of me, and I am trying to draw an advanced seal that will seal the Nine Tails inside of the Shinigami. But even that will only last for a limited amount of time. The Nine Tails will eventually free itself, but at least nobody will have to suffer the life of a Jinchuriki for a long time," spoke Ken as he continued to draw the intricate seal that he had invented. It was based off another seal that the Uzumaki clan had invented that summoned the death god, but this one had a different purpose. "Do you need any help?" asked the fourth Hokage. "Yeah. Push as much chakra as you can into the seal. I'll do the rest," spoke Ken as he whipped some sweat from his brow. "Okay," spoke Minato. So Minato pushed as much chakra into the seal as he could. Then the death god appeared, after the Nine Tails, and finally took both of Minato's and Ken's lives as payment for holding the Kyuubi for 100 years. Ken tried to say only his life was up for sale, but Minato cut him off. "It's for the good of Konoha, and I'm the Hokage, so it's my job to protect this village even at the cost of my own life." After telling his guards that the third is Hokage again and to tell him everything that happened, the death god finally took his payment and took both of their souls for all eternity. After everything was said and done, the village was safe once more. Tsunade wasn't in any shape to help the injured, nor was she going to let her little Naruto out of her arms after what just happened. So Shizen took her place and started healing everyone she could. Tsunade was let out of the hospital a couple of days later with baby Naruto. On her way to the Senju compound, she ran into Kushina. She was looking awful after the death of her brother and her close friend the fourth Hokage, but she put on that fake smile as she walked up to them. "Hello Tsunade, how is Naruto-kun?" shouted Kushina as she walked up to them and looked into the bundle that was closely nuzzled against Tsunade's giant rack. She started making baby noises at her new nephew that her brother had at least been able to meet before he died. "He's fine, just on our way to the Senju compound to put him to bed," replied Tsunade as she watched Kushina make a fool out of herself. She still couldn't understand why people wanted to make those silly sounds and facial features when they looked at babies, but she couldn't say anything since she had been doing it ever since little Naruto had been born. "So do you think I can come over sometime and see my nephew?" asked Kushina with a shy look on her face. She would see her nephew even if she had to beat Tsunade over the head to do it, but the least she could do was ask first. Tsunade thought about it. "I did promise Ken he could spend time with Naruto, and since he has passed on, I guess Kushina can take his place in the deal," thought Tsunade as she looked over at Kushina. "Sure, why not, but you have to help take care of him from time to time," spoke Tsunade, liking the idea of having someone else to keep her Naruto protected in case some other village tried to kidnap him. "Okay, sounds good. Even though Minato wasn't my chosen one, he was still very close. So now I have a cute little boy to keep my mind clear of all those depressing thoughts," spoke Kushina, as she gently took Naruto from Tsunade's reluctant arms and started to play with him as they walked over to their new home. It was a big thing when Kushina and Minato broke up. It wasn't that they weren't happy, it was just that Kushina wanted to save herself for her chosen one, since the Uzumaki were just like the Senju in that regard. So after a little talking and getting to know one another, Tsunade agreed to let Kushina live with her in the Senju compound. Kushina promised to teach Naruto the Uzumaki arts, such as Kenjutsu, Fuinjutsu, barrier ninjutsu, and water-style techniques. The Uzumakis were famous for their skills in the ninja arts as well as medical ninjutsu, but even Kushina was no match for Tsunade in that area. Tsunade already knew what she wanted to teach Naruto when he got a little older. First of all, chakra control. She hoped he got her naturally perfect chakra control. Then medical ninjutsu, and finally her signature super strength technique if possible, though she did want to teach him her strength of 100 seal as well, as that would assuredly keep him from dying. She also had an ulterior motive for letting Kushina stay with her. She knew Jiraiya would come up with any excuse to stay at her house and try and spy on her while she bathed was changing. This way there wasn't anything he could teach baby Naruto that they couldn't teach him. It felt so good when she threatened to have Jiraiya arrested if he tried breaking into her house for any reason. Jiraiya was unhappy at how his teammate had treated him, and tried to assure her that he wouldn't try to turn her son into a pervert, but to no avail. When she went to the Hokage and had a restraining order put out against him, he knew she was serious, so he packed up his bags and decided to get back to his spy network. When people saw Naruto with Tsunade, Shizune, or much more rarely Kushina, they saw the way his hair seemed to shine, and how his eyes were the perfect shade of sky blue, so they began calling him the son of the Senju clan. The name became wildly popular, and soon Tsunade began receiving requests for arranged marriages. "Don't they have anything better to do than try and sell their daughters off to my newborn son?" Tsunade yelled as she shifted through a rather large stack of mail, mostly about Naruto. Shizune and Kushina could only laugh at Tsunade's plight. It wasn't often that daimyo were sending marriage requests to people who were not royalty, but then again the Senju clan was like royalty inside of the Land of Fire, and was actually a recognized name in the government, so maybe it wasn't so crazy. For all they knew, daimyo were sending marriage requests for Tsunade when she was young, and her parents simply destroyed them without her knowing. Tsunade was worried. The more popular Naruto became, the more other nations would take notice of him, if they hadn't already. She feared some crazed IWA ninja was going to try and assassinate him, or a Kumo shinobi would try and kidnap him and turn him into a breeding factory, or even a crazed Kiri ninja would try to kill him thinking he may be a bloodline user like her grandfather with his would release Kekkai Genkai. That's why she had Kushina upgrade the Senju clan's barriers and also had someone with Naruto at all times. 5 years later, baby Naruto was running through the Senju compound at high speeds with an excited look on his face. He had always had way too much energy, which caused Tsunade, Kushina, and Shizune a lot of headaches, but they consoled themselves by saying it was a sign of someone with lots of chakra. Shizune-chan, guess what? Kaizen said that today was the day she would start teaching me how to be a really strong ninja like you and Kaizen, and Kushina-chan, spoke Naruto with his overly excited childish voice. He couldn't wait to start learning how to be a powerful ninja like his mother, and it was driving him crazy not starting immediately. Looking down, Shizune saw her favorite little brother. He had grown much in his 5 short years of life. He He was now about 3 foot 10 inches tall. He was fairly tall for a boy his age and about 50 pounds. His eyes still shined with pure happiness, and just looking into those eyes made her smile. Running her fingers through his chin-length hair that was still as bright as the day he was born, Shizune said, "Well, if she's going to teach you, then so am I." Naruto was about to explode when he heard Kushina come from behind him and say, "Then that makes 3 of us." Outside in the training ground, Tsunade was standing there ready to starting teaching her son about how to be a ninja when she saw him and his 2 Nichins coming out of the house. She sighed a bit knowing that they were going to want to teach him as well. Kaizen, shouted Naruto as he ran at his mother, then jumped up into her arms. Tsunade smiled as her son hugged her and nestled his face in between her large breasts. He had always seemed to like them. Typical male, she would say in her head, then laugh, confusing Naruto. "I can already guess what happened, but Naruto-chan, I think we will need to talk a bit about the basics before we start teaching you anything important," spoke Tsunade as she pried her son off of her, and then sat him down on the side of a fallen tree, so that he would be comfortable while they explained the basics to him. "Naruto-chan, your body is still too young and is still developing, so we can't do any strenuous physical activities or it will stunt your growth. And there will be no ifs, ands, or buts about it, young man," spoke Tsunade, seeing her son about to complain. He wanted to learn how to be a ninja, but he didn't want to wait, which was his fatal flaw right now. "We will be teaching you things like chakra control, medical ninjutsu, shuriken jutsu, and things like that which are not a threat to your development. But don't worry, I promise you will love it," spoke Shizune with a smile on her face. She saw the deflated look on Naruto's face and thought he looked so cute. "What about elemental ninjutsu or genjutsu?" spoke Naruto, wanting to learn those 2 things most of all, but he saw the way his family was looking, which gave him a sad feeling. "It takes years to learn things like that, and if you don't have nearly perfect chakra control, you won't be able to use genjutsu anyways. Basically what I am saying, Naruto, is that what we are teaching you is the basics, well, not medical ninjutsu, but the rest is. Once you have mastered the basics, you will find that learning other things is much easier, so actually by doing this you will learn the things that you want much faster," spoke Kushina with a smile on her face. It wasn't a lie. If he did have perfect chakra control, then learning how to convert said chakra into elemental chakra would be much easier, but he obviously had large chakra reserves and they were still growing, so learning to control it would be an ongoing challenge unless he had Tsunade's naturally perfect chakra control. "Okay," shouted Naruto as he pumped his fist, getting ready to learn how to be a really cool ninja. His family started to giggle a bit, which confused Naruto, but he let it go and watched as Shizunichin picked a leaf off of a tree and then handed it to Naruto. "What is this for?" asked Naruto, seeing that there wasn't anything special about the leaf. "The first step in learning chakra control," spoke Tsunade with a scary look on her face that made Naruto gulp a bit. After a long day of training, Naruto had gone up to his room and had fallen asleep almost as soon as his head had hit the pillow. He had learned so many new and interesting things today that it had amazed his young mind, and he found that his mother and sister's constant praises of his abilities to be a great added bonus. Down in the dining room sat Kushina, Tsunade, and Shizune, all with shocked expressions on their faces. They had never expected what they had just seen to happen. Naruto's chakra control was amazing, and he had a natural grasp on it as well. His chakra reserves were huge for someone his age, so they had suspected that it would take a while for him to master the leaf balancing exercise, even with the natural skill Uzumaki and Senju were born with, but Naruto mastered the leaf balancing exercise in 10 minutes. Kushina and Shizune were speechless, while Tsunade's brain went on autopilot and started teaching him how to tree walk. When Naruto was quickly learning how to do that, they had all been just so shocked they were unable to speak and just kept watching Naruto get further and further up the tree with every try. Soon after only an hour of practice, Naruto had mastered that exercise as well. So for the rest of the day they taught him water walking and kunai balancing. They were quickly seeing that chakra control wasn't a problem for Naruto regardless of his large chakra reserves. "I still can't believe it, and I saw it happening with my own 2 eyes, spoke Shizune as she looked at the table with a blank stare. Her mind was going through 1,000,001 different things at once, like all of the possibilities that were open for Naruto. Chakra control was the thing she was sure would hold him up, not anything else, since Senju and Uzumaki were known for their natural skills, but it seemed that she was wrong. It was like a sixth sense to him. I actually wish I had the Byakugan now because I am sure there is something going on with his chakra circulatory system that is allowing Naruto to control his large chakra reserves like that, spoke Kushina, slightly jealous since chakra control had always been a problem for her and her brother, though shape manipulation was second nature to them because of their Kekkai Genkai. She was thinking of all the things that Naruto could learn now that they knew he was a natural with chakra control. He could learn medical ninjutsu like Tsunade had always talked about, though her and Shizun had never believed he would be able to do it because of his chakra reserves, learn her super strength technique, how to create chakra chains, the strength of 100 seal, and so much more. Kushina absent-mindedly thought about all of the skills that they had that required almost perfect chakra control. I think Kushina is on to something. I will call a Hyuga to look over Naruto tomorrow because with his reserves he shouldn't be able to control chakra that well. I need to know if there is some kind of defect or mutation going on with his chakra system that could be dangerous in the future, spoke Tsunade, though she was thinking that if it was a mutation and not lethal, then it could be a major bonus. It was like how Kekkai Genkai were formed, but instead of mixing two elements together, he would be born with large chakra reserves and an easy way to manipulate chakra, much better than some Kekkai Genkai in her opinion, since those two things were what all ninja wished they had. Do you think that is wise, Tsunade? The Hyuga would almost undoubtedly tell the elders of the Hyuga clan. Then, as you know, the gossip would spread from there. There is no telling what damage this could do to the Senju reputation or to Naruto's reputation, spoke Shizun with a raised eyebrow. There were ways to examine the chakra system with medical ninjutsu, but it was long and tedious, and Naruto's attention only lasted so long before he started getting bored and would start trying to get away. While a Hyuga could do it quickly, it wasn't as discreet as they would want it to be. I am sure that I will be able to convince Hayashi to keep this discreet. Plus, that prick owes me. If it wasn't for me, his wife would be dead because of complications with his daughter Hinata, and possibly his only heir. I am sure he will have a second child regardless of the risks, as it is a Hyuga tradition to have two children and then choose whichever is the best to lead their clan, spoke Tsunade, obviously having problems with the Hyuga traditions. But it was law that the clans may practice whatever traditions they wish so long as they didn't threaten Konoha, since it was the pact they made when they first formed Konoha. Well, I guess if you put it that way, then it should be fine. I just hope that there isn't anything wrong with little Naruchan, spoke Shizun, as she took a sip of tea, thinking about how devastated she would be if her little Naruchan was sick or injured. I bet he has some super cool power that lets him manipulate chakra super easy. If he could pass that on, then the power his descendants would have is almost unimaginable. Who knows what ninja would be able to do with perfect chakra control and monstrous chakra reserves, spoke Kushina, always being the optimistic one in the group. She knew there was nothing wrong with Naruto. Everything in his family pointed towards a perfectly healthy, yet extraordinary child with endless potential. The son of a pure breed member of the head family of the Uzumaki clan. A direct descendant of the first Hokage and super powerful mother who had pure Uzumaki genes as well, and of course whatever factor the Nine Tails would play, as it obviously would being sealed inside of Naruto's father. Alright, it is settled then. I will call Hayashi over tomorrow so that he can look over Naruto, and if there is nothing wrong then all will be good. If there is something odd then we will have to tackle that in the morning. Right now I am so mentally exhausted that I just want to all asleep, spoke Tsunade, thankful for having Kushina and Shizun to talk to. She would never be unhappy so long as she had Naruto, but it was nice having some more adult conversation than the ones she had with her 5-year-old son. She, Shizun, and Kushina all went to bed after that with thoughts of tomorrow on their minds. Naruto was practically jumping out of his skin as he ran out onto the training ground with his mother and two Nichins. They had taught him how to levitate a leaf over his head, though that wasn't all that great, and walk up trees like he did the ground, that was awesome, and how to walk on water, which was amazing. Now he could go fishing anywhere he wanted. He did notice that they looked like they were waiting on something though, which was a bit annoying for a 5-year-old who wanted to learn something new like he had the other day. Don't worry, Naruchan. Once Hayashi looks over you, we can begin training. I promise, spoke Tsunade, as she looked down at her son, who looked like he was about to explode. She was thinking about testing for ADHD since he never seemed to be able to slow down, but she just figured it was another side effect of all that chakra he had that was just waiting to be burned into fuel for Naruto. Hayashi Hyuga had very long, brown hair and featureless white eyes like all members of his clan. He was wearing very traditional, loose-fitting robes with a long-sleeved, brown haori. Naruto thought that he looked like a girl, but his mother had taught him that saying things like that got him a timeout, so he kept his mouth shut. He had received a message from Tsunade that she wanted him to examine her son using his Byakugan to make sure there wasn't anything wrong with his chakra circulatory system, which he found odd. Usually he would have sent a branch member to do such a menial task, as a clan head shouldn't have to subjugate it to such petty work. But Tsunade had reminded him that it was she who had saved his wife and child, and probably would have to do so again in the future if he continued to follow his clan's outdated and stupid tradition, as Tsunade had called them, so he had agreed to do it himself. It had nothing to do with the fact that she said she would also be the person who made sure he never had another kid again using her monstrous strength if he refused. So he sucked it up and did as he was asked to do. When he made it to the Senju compound, Tsunade's assistant was there to greet before she led him to the back of the large compound where Tsunade Senju, Kushina Uzumaki, and Naruto Uzumaki Senju were waiting for him. He just wanted to get this over, as he had other things to do besides do tricks with his eyes for these people. "Who is that guy?" asked Naruto, pointing towards Hayashi with an innocent look on his face that made all of the women present just gush at his innocence. "That Naruchan is Hayashi Hyuga, clan head of the Hyuga clan, and he is here because he agreed to help me to see if there is something physical that made it so easy for you to learn chakra control the other day," spoke Tsunade with a sweet voice, though the part about chakra control got Hayashi's attention, as that was basically the most important part of their clan's techniques. Maybe he would be able to learn something that would help them get stronger after all. "I thought you were the best medical ninja in the world. So why would you this man, mama?" spoke Naruto with a finger in his mouth and his big blue eyes looking up at her like a little puppy dog. Tsunade had found the ultimate weapon. There was nothing in this world that could deny that face. "Well, you see, Naruchan, I am the best medical ninja in the world, but it is still very difficult for me to examine the chakra system since it is so complex. And with your short attention span, I figured having a Hyuga with the Byakugan look over you would be a much better solution to our current dilemma," spoke Tsunade, though she did have to explain to Naruto about the Hyuga clan and their famous dojutsu, the Byakugan. To say Naruto was amazed would be an understatement. "Yes, while this is all fun and whatnot, can we please move on? I have other things to do today," spoke Hayashi as he walked up to Naruto and then looked down on him. Byakugan, thought Hayashi as he looked down on Naruto and started to examine him. He let out a gasp in surprise, shocking all present at the reaction the head of the Hyuga family had. When he deactivated his Byakugan, he knew that they would all want an in-depth explanation as to what he saw. "What was it? Is there anything wrong with my baby?" asked Tsunade as she slowly approached Hayashi. Hayashi knew that he better start talking quick, or Tsunade was going to start throwing him around trying to shake the answers out of him. "He has 3 chakra pathways and 6 times the number of tenketsu points inside of his body," spoke Hayashi, getting surprised looks from everyone around him. Though he couldn't blame them. This was amazing, to say the least. "Explain," spoke Kushina, being the less educated in the medical arts out of the 3 girls, though that wasn't to say that she didn't know what was going on entirely. "As you know, there is a path in which all chakra flows, and the tenketsu are like places that manipulate chakra and allow us to better control our chakra. Naruto has 3 of these paths coming from his core that spread out through his body in a much more complex web than other people's chakra network. He also has 6 times the number of tenketsu points, which is why he has such great chakra control. He is genetically superior to others is the best way I can describe it," spoke Hayashi, thinking about what he had seen. He could only guess that the Senju/Uzumaki genes had somehow mutated due to the Nine-Tails influence, and this was the result. He wished greatly that all Hyuga had this type of chakra system in them. Learning and advancing the gentle fist would be so much easier this way. After that, Hayashi and Tsunade, along with the other girls, continued to discuss what had happened until Hayashi left, though even then the girls continued to talk about what had happened. Naruto quickly got bored and started to play on top of a large pond out behind their house, watching as fish swam up to the top of the water to eat the worms and bugs that he was throwing to them that he had found earlier. "What should we do, Tsunade? If what Hayashi said is correct, then chakra control should be a breeze for him, and with Kushina's chakra materialization, bloodline limit shape manipulation should be a breeze as well," spoke Shizun, just trying to imagine a way for Naruto to train that wasn't exceedingly easy for him. He would be naturally gifted in all ninja arts because of his heritage, his chakra control would be a breeze, and he was naturally strong and energetic, so there really wasn't a field in which Naruto should have any real difficulties besides possibly advanced genjutsu. We are going to focus on the basics, spoke Tsunade, whose brain was on autopilot again. We will teach him all of the chakra control exercises that we know, all of the shape manipulation exercises that we know, how to convert chakra into medical chakra, and then we will fill his brain with facts. That means we will teach him anatomy, algebra, anything he will need to know to become a medical ninja, while he will also need to learn everything from basic math, science, history, geology to the high learning areas so that he will not miss anything. We will also need to drill things like chakra theory into his head, so he will know more about what chakra is instead of just how to shape it, spoke Tsunade as she pulled out a piece of paper and looked at it. Once he has mastered shape manipulation and chakra control, I will teach him my strength of 100 seal. That way he will be able to manifest it before he even graduates from the academy, and it will not get in the way later on, spoke Tsunade as she put the paper back in her pocket. The thing we must make sure of is that we don't tell anyone of his skills. The other villages will not hesitate to assassinate him if they found out that he is a genius, spoke Tsunade with some hesitance in her voice. We should also teach him things like how to make poisons, and we should also start building up his immunity to poisons. I know that Suna is the ones who usually use poisons, though Kiri is a close second. But this is the ninja world and anything can happen, spoke Shizune, already plotting out a schedule in her brain on how to strengthen Naruto to poisons as much as possible without making him to sick most of the time. We can't forget Shuriken Jutsu either. It is a basic shinobi skill, and the sooner he learns how to use kunai, shuriken, and senbon the better. It will also help him with his anatomy and vice versa, spoke Kushina, already thinking of ways to help Naruto get stronger without pushing him too hard. He already had so much on his plate, and learning the mental stuff with all that energy was hard. She knew that for a fact, so she knew that they would have to go easy on him a bit. Alright, we all know what we need to do, and since Shuriken Jutsu will help Naruto physically without putting too much strain on his body, we can begin teaching him that as soon as possible as well. Shizune, you had better use only the weakest of poisons on Naruto until he has a good immunity, or else, and I will stick with his chakra control and shape manipulation. The rest of the stuff we will alternate doing, as he will probably end up hating whoever it is that would be forced to teach him all of that by themselves, spoke Tsunade, knowing how being still was the last thing that Naruto would ever have on his mind. Even as a small baby, his legs never stopped kicking and his arms never stopped flailing around. Yes, ma'am, spoke Shizune, as she gave a salute to Tsunade with a grin on her face. You can count on us, spoke Kushina as she mimicked Shizune with a grin of her own. Why do I keep you two around, spoke Tsunade with a sigh as she face-palmed herself. Naruto had been playing keep away from the fish. He would feed them some bread or worms that he had found and then run away as the fish were eating to the other side of the pond. It wouldn't take long for splashing to start happening and then movement under the water to start coming in his direction. It was a lot of fun, and Naruto was sure that he could catch his own fish if he was fast enough. But he found playing with the fish much more fun than killing and eating them. There you are, Naruto, came from behind Naruto. He looked back and saw his mother and two sister figures looking at him from the bank, which caused him to smile. Are you guys all done talking? Asked Naruto with a happy tone. Finally, they would start teaching him something cool like they had yesterday. He knew that something weird had happened by the way they had reacted, but his short attention hadn't allowed him to ponder that avenue and went straight to something else that was more fun. Yes, Naruto, we are done gossiping about you. So hurry up and come over here, so we can start your training, spoke Kushina with a smile on her face. She watched him dump what looked like a bucket of bugs into the water where the fish went crazy on them and then run towards them. Cool, so what will you guys be teaching me? Asked Naruto, hoping it was something cool like how to heal cuts and bruises like he had seen his mother do when he was younger and followed her around the hospital. Naruto had never been a patient in a hospital. His mother told him that he healed too fast for that, and after some of the things that he had seen, he was very happy about that. Tsunade, Kushina, and Shizune were all very lucky that Naruto had never seen something like a fire jutsu before, or else they would never have been able to wrangle in his attention. Yes, Kushina-chan will teach you Shuriken Jutsu, Shizune-chan will teach you about poisons, and I will keep teaching you chakra control as well as shape manipulation. We are also going to have to start improving you educations, spoke Tsunade, seeing how happy Naruto was. Until that last bit. Naruto hated to sit down and learn, but Tsunade had an idea on how to fix that. Don't worry, Naruto, we are also going to teach you how to be stealth like real ninja, as well as how to use those weak, but useful academy jutsu, but only if you are good. Let's just say that learning jutsu is a type of reward for doing a good job, spoke Shizune with a smile on her face. She knew just how to get Naruto's attention without using force. Yeah, and if you are really good, I will teach you my super strength technique, will make you so strong you could break a mountain with your bare fists, spoke Tsunade, hoping to get Naruto really excited and malleable for his future education. Yes, shouted Naruto, causing everyone in Konoha to hear him shouting. Uzumaki and Senju Chapter 2. 3 years later. Naruto had grown a lot in the past 3 years. His body had gotten more muscular and well-defined, while his body got bigger. His body had a streamlined look to it, which many of the girls who were starting to get interested in boys thought was very cute, and the clothes his mother and sisters bought for him really showed off what he was packing. The markings on Naruto's face had become a bit more defined and had darkened as well. The markings were no longer a light grass green but more of a light forest green. But there was still only 2 on each cheek and none on his chin, something Naruto was thankful for. Naruto's hair was still the shiny golden color it had been when he was a kid, but now it jutted out in weird directions like his great-granduncle Tobirama Senju's hair did. His eyes were still a handsome sky blue color, but now there were dark speckles inside of them that gave them a mystifying attribute as well. Naruto's outfit had changed a bit as well. He now wore dark forest green cargo shorts that had lots of pockets on them. His shirt was a black muscle shirt with mesh armor underneath that looked pretty cool. On the back of his shirt was the Senju marking with the symbol of the Uzumaki right in the center of it. Naruto liked his family's clan symbols, but if he only got to choose one he would have chosen the Uzumaki swirl. It was just simpler than that weird symbol the Senju used. Around his neck was a silver necklace with a round blue stone at the end of it. It had been Tobirama's, but it wasn't as famous as Hashirama's necklace that Tsunade wore. Naruto's sandals were normal, though they were black, and he wore bandages wrapping around his legs that disappeared into his shorts and sandals. All in all, Naruto had become a very handsome young man, but that didn't matter much to Naruto, because today was a very special day in Naruto's opinion. He had recently turned 8 years old, and that meant he was old enough to enter the academy, something that he had been looking forward to doing for some time now. His mother had told him that it was boring, pointless, and would only slow him down, as did his 2 sisters, but Naruto didn't care. It was more about making friends in Naruto's opinion since he wasn't allowed to leave the Senju clan compound without his mother, Shizune, or Kushina latching onto him. He wanted to make some real friends. Not those bratty kids that always were with the parents that tried to flag his sisters and mother down to talk. Naruto found out that they were what was known as gold diggers, and that he should stay away from them by his mother. But Naruto didn't need to be told that. He could just feel the dishonesty in them. "Hey Mom, hurry up. We're going to be late," shouted Naruto as he walked down the wooden hallways of the Senju clan compound looking for his mother. She could be elusive if she wanted to be, but Naruto was a natural censor, and it had been one of the things that his mother had focused on when training, though his skills were not as good now because of him having to focus his chakra into his forehead to try and develop his mother's seal, but nonetheless he could still feel the basics of what was around him. "Since when did you start rushing me, young man?" came a voice from around the corner. Her voice wasn't angry or anything like that, and it even had some playfulness in it, but Naruto had seen what his mother was capable of when he was younger. While they were out in the market, some weird guy had tried to hit on her and she punched him through a wall. After that, Naruto knew that his mother was truly a woman to be feared. When Naruto turned the corner, he saw his mother all dressed up in her favorite green outfit that showed the world how much she used to gamble. Naruto wanted to sigh knowing his mother's antics, but he was happy that she had given up gambling, especially after Shizune told him about how terrible she was at it, and how they had been chased out of more than one country for her bad habits. Naruto knew now that he would have to fix the damage his mother had caused both to their reputation and financially, but they were ninja, so he didn't have to do it all the mundane way. "Hey Mom, you look really beautiful," spoke Naruto with a big smile on his face. When Tsunade had turned around and saw her baby boy, her heart lightened a bit. She loved that boy more than anything else in this world, and thanked God every day for giving her the idea to get the artificial insemination done. She had no idea what her life would be like if she hadn't done such a thing. "Why, thank you, Naru-chan. You're looking handsome yourself, trying to start picking up girls to help restore the Senju clan," spoke Tsunade with a grin on her face. It was so much fun watching Naruto start to blush and stutter when she brought up him repopulating the Senju clan. He was so innocent in her eyes, and she loved to mess with him for it. "Mom, don't embarrass me," spoke Naruto as his face started to turn red. He had been told when he had turned 8 years old that he would have to repopulate the Senju clan with his own genes when the time came. With all of the medical knowledge that had been pounded into him from such an early age, Naruto knew what that had meant, and honestly it was more than a little shock to his system. The thought of having a harem was not a bad idea in Naruto's mind. Even though he was young, he still did have a healthy appreciating for the female body, but oddly enough he had always found himself comparing other women to his mother, Kushina, and Shizune, and had almost always found that all women were inferior to them after doing so. Naruto wondered if he was one of those guys with a family complex, but he was young and soon forgot about it. There were also the benefits of having multiple women in his lives. They would never have to worry about a babysitter since there was no way he could take them all out on dates at the same time. There was the fact that their relationship would never get boring because of how intricate it was. If the women were unique, they would bring that uniqueness into the clan, be in jutsu or techniques that they had invented, hair color, skills, etc., which would help future generations. Don't worry, Naruto-chan, I won't embarrass you. I will just tell everyone we see how cute you were when you were still my little baby who loved to hold on to mommy's boobies," spoke Tsunade as she pulled Naruto into a big hug and smashed his face against her bust. She found it so cute how he would start to flush from embarrassment when she would do things like this now. Ever since he had been told he would have to restart the Senju clan, he had been much more reserved when it came to close intimate contact with women's lady parts. Tsunade loved to take advantage of that so much. When Shizune walked into the room and saw a red-faced Naruto being hugged by Lady Tsunade, she already knew what was going on. But today just wasn't the day for all of that. They had to get to the academy soon or Naruto would miss getting to see all of the other students talking and playing at the entrance of the academy. She knew that this was the time that most of the academy students made friends, and she wanted Naruto to make as many lifetime friends that he could. "Lady Tsunade, please stop teasing Naruto-chan and get moving. We don't want him to be late on his first day. Now do we," spoke Shizune as she pulled Naruto out of Tsunade's hands. Naruto thought he was safe until Shizune leaned down and pulled Naruto into her double D breasts, basically smothering him. "He needs to make friends his own age, not just us," continued Shizune, like what she was doing was different than what Tsunade had been doing. She saw the look of jealousy when she saw Tsunade's face and decided to stop messing with her. "My Naruto-chan doesn't need to go to the academy, and I don't see why you and Kushina think he does. He is plenty strong enough to graduate whenever he wants, and I think he should stay here in the Senju compound until he is old enough to graduate normally, so that I can keep training him like I have been for the last 3 years, spoke Tsunade as she crossed her arms underneath her impressive bust, causing it to jiggle. She didn't notice the look on Naruto's face when he saw this, much to Naruto's relief, and went on pouting like a small child who hadn't gotten her way. "We know Naruto-chan is strong, but he also needs to learn to communicate with people his own age. If we keep him locked up in here, then he will become unable to understand other people, and he definitely won't be able to make any friends. Worst of all, he won't be able to meet any girls to help revive the Senju clan. That is the main point after all," spoke Shizune, already knowing what this was really about. Tsunade had found it funny when they told Naruto that he was going to have multiple wives, but as the years dragged on it seemed that she was more and more against the idea, until the point where she was completely against the idea of Naruto ever meeting a woman. If Shizune didn't know any better, she would assume that Tsunade wanted Naruto all to herself in more ways than one, but she was sure that wasn't the case. "Humph, that is such a stupid reason. Plus the day Naruto was born I received no less than 100 marriage requests from ladies, princesses, and even priestess wishing to become a part of Naruto's harem. So there is no shortage in suitable women for him to settle down with," spoke Tsunade with some heat in her tone. She had been far from happy when all of those damned marriage requests had come pouring into her clan's compound the day that Naruto had been born. She had ripped them all up, as she wasn't about to give her baby away to any hussies, regardless of their noble births. Kushina had heard all of the commotion and walked up to the door that it was all coming from to listen in. She knew what they were arguing about, and honestly she didn't know why Tsunade kept on trying to resist the fact that Naruto was growing up. Even she had a hard time knowing that one day her little Naruto wouldn't be so little anymore, and that he wouldn't want to spend as much time with her as they had when she was teaching him how to become a cool ninja like he always talked about. As she listened in, she got a great idea to mess with everyone in the room, so she slowly opened the door as to not be noticed by anyone and walked on in. When Tsunade started to talk about marriage and children, Kushina decided to let her presence be known. I completely agree with Tsunade. There are plenty of eligible candidates out there that would be perfect for Naruto, spoke Kushina with a devious grin on her face. Tsunade's eyes narrowed when she saw that grin and the tone in Kushina's voice. Knowing of the Uzumaki's legendary prankster reputation, Naruto just sighed, knowing that the conversation had changed once again to something that didn't even matter right now. Shizen's eyes narrowed as well, but for some reason in her heart she felt like this was a test, or maybe a beginning. She had always felt that the relationship they all felt with one another was slowly changing, and that this might be the revealing moment of something deeper that they had all ignored. Yes, you see, Shizune, there are plenty of women out there that would be able to give Naruto strong ninja children, spoke Tsunade, keeping an eye on Kushina, whose grin only seemed to increase after every word she said. She could feel something that was going to get her all angry about to happen. Of course, I am here, aren't I? With me here, then we will never have to worry about Naruto having strong children, because our children will always be the strongest, spoke Kushina, as she pulled Naruto out of Shizen's embrace and into her own double E-cup breasts that started to smother a red-faced Naruto. She loved that innocent look on his face, and in the back of her mind she wanted to corrupt him into something even dirtier. What? You will not lay even one single finger on my Naruto, shouted Tsunade, as she jumped out of her chair, knocking over the table that she had been sitting against. As the table hit the ground, only the grinning face of Kushina was present, along with the shocked face of Shizune, the rage-induced face of Tsunade, and the embarrassed look on Naruto's face. Oh, and why not? I am from a powerful clan that would surely give Naruto very strong children. I have tons of life force, so giving birth to any number of children that he would want isn't a problem. Plus I am a strong and feared kunoichi all around the world. As far as I can see, I am the perfect woman for Naruto to have in his life, spoke Kushina. Her voice oddly held a hint of anger to it. Either Tsunade didn't notice this, or she simply didn't care. But one thing was for sure, she wasn't about to lose her baby to this red-headed temptress. Ha, you feared? I have had platoons of ninja running away once they heard my name. You're nothing but a second-rate kunoichi when compared to me, spoke Tsunade as she walked up to Kushina and shoved her larger bust into Kushina's large bust, causing the woman to give Tsunade an annoyed look. And I am much more endowed than you could ever hope to be, spoke Tsunade, knowing that usually ended all arguments that any woman had ever had with her. It seemed that bust sizes were like badges of honor to women that they showed off, but for some reason got mad when a man commented on them. Kushina was mad, no doubt about it, but she was clever as well. She knew how to get back at Tsunade for sure. Wow, that is a bold statement there, Tsunade. It almost sounds like you are saying that the only woman good enough for Naruto is you, spoke Kushina with a grin on her face. It also sounds like you're getting jealous even though you're his mother. What, do you have some kind of thing for your own son? Asked Kushina with a strained smile on her face as her hair started to flail around behind her, causing it to look like 9 red tails moving all about. Tsunade was shocked and angry all at the same time. Her face contorted into one of anger as a blood vessel bulged out on her forehead. It was taking all of her restraint not to knock Kushina out with one of her famous super punches, but she knew that resorting to violence would basically mean she was admitting defeat. Look at this, never would have expected the supposed princess of the land of whirlpools, and the last of the illustrious Uzumaki clan, to have a thing for children. Maybe I should call the ANBU and have them arrest you for attempted pedophilia, spoke Tsunade, though the bulge was still visible on her forehead, and her face was still contorted into one of anger. Kushina's hair started to flail about even more than usual at such an insult, but the sickly sweet smile never left her face. Well, at least. But before Kushina could say anything, a red-faced Shizen cut across her, knowing that this wasn't going to end well for anyone if she let it continue like this. I want you two to know that Naruto went on ahead to the academy. He didn't want to be late, and he was having a hard time not passing out from having his face smothered by your large chest areas, spoke Shizen, knowing that this would snap them out of their pointless bickering very quickly. though that didn't mean she didn't want in on the argument as well. What? Shouted Kushina and Tsunade as they turned around to look at Shizune with shocked looks on their faces. When they started to look around, they saw that it was true that Naruto wasn't in the room anymore, so he must have left without them. The village was going through a rough time with the destruction that the nine-tailed fox caused and the shortages the Third Great Shinobi World War had caused as well, but even still the people were happy, the children were running around laughing, and the businesses were booming. All in all, life in the Leaf was pretty good. Naruto had left his house knowing that his mom and his sisters could argue for hours on end and he didn't want to be late for his first day. So he kind of ducked out when nobody was looking. It really wasn't that hard since when his mom and sisters argued they zoned in on the other person and nothing short of the Hokage yelling at them could get them to stop until they were done arguing about whatever it is that they were arguing about. Naruto shook his head a bit when he thought about his mother and sisters fighting. They really knew how to fight amongst themselves, and on more than one occasion he had to train himself while they argued about what was the best way to train him. It was kind of ironic, really. "Hey, look, it's a mutt," came a high-pitched voice that was obviously from a kid. "Shut up, he isn't a mutt, you jerk," came another voice from one of the alleyways that the first voice came from, though this one was a bit deeper than the other one. "He was talking about you, dog boy," came a sneering voice in the same area as the first two voices that sounded like he was trying to breathe through his nose while he talked. "I'll kick your butt," came that same voice which Naruto was starting to think was some kid on his own. "Ha! I would like to see you try," came a fourth voice from Bello. "Let's get this over with. I'm tired of messing with this first-year wannabe. So let's teach him a lesson and get back to the academy," came a voice that sounded older than the other ones before a course of agreements followed it. Down in the Allies. Today had seemed like it would be a good day for Kiba when he woke up. His sister didn't make fun of him, and his mother had made his favorite breakfast, which was basically a wide assortment of meats that he absolutely loved. His mother was going to walk him to school, but some of the dogs got into a fight over territory and Kiba wasn't interested in letting his sister walk him to the academy, as she would surely do something to embarrass him, so he had ducked out when she went to go check on the animals in their clinic. Kiba wore blue ninja sandals on his feet with no bandages wrapped around his legs like many others did. His skin tone was tanned from being outside so much, and he wore a tanned long-sleeved shirt on top of mesh armor. His shorts were a faded gray color that had two large pockets under the normal pockets on the sides of his pants. He had two marking of his clan on his cheeks and had black eyes that were in the form of slits. His hair was a light brown color that jutted out in every direction, wrapping up the overall feral look he seemed to be aiming for. Kiba had been shocked when one of the dogs decided to follow him to the academy, since none of the dogs had bonded with him yet. It was a focus point of his sister Hannah's jokes, especially about his smell, saying things like not even the dogs want to be around him because of his rank. Kiba had always gotten mad because he did take good showers so that he wouldn't smell bad. He had happily allowed the dog to take him, which was about up to his chest area, though that wasn't any surprise being Kiba was only 8. But if anyone didn't know, the dogs of the Inuzuka clan got huge, even bigger than normal people, so it was safe to say that this dog was still young. He had run down the streets of Konoha after he left his clan's district and went straight for the academy to go see all of the potential rivals that he would have for the next 4 years. He had cut through the back alleyways to get there faster, but had run into Ryuju and his band of misfits who were in their 3rd years and Ryuju being in his final year. Ryuju and his gang hadn't taken too kindly to Kiba running into them and had knocked him against the wall, with the dog being the only reason they hadn't advanced on him yet. There were 4 of them, and only Kiba, who had only just started his ninja training, and the young ninja dog that was acting as his guard, so he wasn't looking too good right now. Well, if it isn't Kiba Inuzuka. I heard you were starting this year, but I never believed it. Who would let a runt like this in the academy is beyond me," spoke Ryuju as he advanced on Kiba, who was backed up against a wall with a worried look on his face. "Hey, you better shut up, I am not no runt. I am an alpha," shouted Kiba as he puffed up his small chest to exert his dominance. But they just laughed at his petty attempts at showcasing. "Look at this little brat, he has a dog's brain," spoke one of the members of Ryuju's gang as he pointed at Kiba and began to laugh at him along with the rest of the gang. "Shut up, and stop insulting me and my clan," shouted Kiba, feeling his anger getting the better of him. He was brash as hell, there was no denying that, but even he knew when he was outmatched. "Or what will you do, dog? Breathe," Gonna bite me to death or something? Asked another one of the members as he started to make some motions like a dog chewing on his arm before laughing again. Kiba was only a kid, and being bullied like that really hurt him deep inside. Tears started to form in his eyes, and there was no doubt that Ryuju and his gang were going to take advantage of that. Look boys, he is about to start crying. What a pussycat. Gonna go home to mama and cry a river of crocodile tears. Ha putty cat, laughed Ryuju as he pointed at Kiba and laughed so hard he nearly fell to the ground. By now Kiba was having to fight back the tears as he was surrounded by these bullies and forced to listen to them as they insulted him and what he stood for. He wasn't going to have this, so he closed his eyes and ran forward, hell-bent on teaching them a lesson. HHHH, shouted Kiba as he charged forward and took a swipe at one of the boys, cutting into their arms, though there was little damage since Kiba's nails were not very long or sharp yet. He quickly turned around and delivered a punch to Ryuju's surprised face and tried to hit him again before he was blindsided by another boy and knocked to the ground. When he was on the ground, another boy kicked him in the head, dazing him. Off to the side, two of the boys were keeping the ninja dog occupied so it couldn't help Kiba. You little bastard, spoke Ryuju as he reached up and felt under his nose. When he lifted his hand up and saw red on the ends of his fingertips, he knew that Kiba had busted his nose, and he couldn't let word that a first year had harmed him or he would be the laughing stock of the academy. What should we do with him, Ryuju? Asked another one of Ryuju's cronies as he held Kiba down, so that the boy couldn't get back up to defend himself. I am going to turn this little brat black and blue, and if he ever breathes a word about busting my nose, I will skin him alive, spoke Ryuju as he knelt down and started to wail on Kiba's back and head with heavy punches. Up above on the roof, Naruto watched what had happened and was appalled at the sight of four older kids beating up another kid just because he had accidentally bumped into them. Naruto really didn't want to get into any trouble, and he really didn't want to be late for his first day at class, but he couldn't leave this kid to get his ass handed to him like this. It would ruin his time at the academy, and if he was looking forward to it like Naruto was, then it would be a complete bust for him if this were to continue. Naruto took a deep breath before jumping off of the roof and down into the fray. He felt it odd that none of the other students had decided to use wall walking to get to school, but figured they wanted to savor the moment and had gone slow to get to the academy. Down in the allies, Ryuju had already hit Kiba 5 times when a hand caught his own. Ryuju was going to beat the crap out of anyone who was trying to stop him, but was shocked when another hand grabbed him by his belt and picked him up only to slam him back on the ground in some strange reverse slam attack. Ryuju's gang was shocked when they saw a blonde-haired boy just suddenly appear from the sky. They were even more shocked at how fast he moved, leaving them no time to tell their boss of the threat. They almost wet themselves when they saw how strong the boy was when he slammed Ryuju into the ground behind him. Hey, you guys should stop all of this bullying stuff or we are going to be late for our first day, spoke Naruto like these 4 boys actually cared about the academy. Ryuju had already failed twice, which left him bigger and stronger than the other kids, but now that didn't seem to be working to his advantage. I don't know who you are, but if you attack the boss, then you attack the gang. Let's teach this brat what happens when you cross us, shouted one of them as he and the other 3 lackeys charged Naruto. Kiba was in pain as his back was surely bruised from the beating he had taken, but that didn't mean he hadn't seen what the blonde-haired boy had done to Ryuju, which had really shocked him. He hadn't thought that anyone their age would be able to take him on alone, yet this kid seemed to be able to do it with ease. When Kiba saw the other group start to attack Naruto as a group, he tried to get up, he really did, but his arms started to shake, causing him to fall onto the ground completely useless. He was going to shout at the kid to run away and save himself, but to his shock the blonde kid didn't even seem worried about them. Naruto remembered what his mother had told him when he was a bit younger. She had said that he was stronger than other kids his age and many who were much older, calling him a natural genius, but with the skill came responsibility. He was supposed to know how to control his power and not hurt his allies even if they were giving him a hard time. Naruto had never really thought about that until now. When he had slammed that big kid so easily, he realized that maybe his mother had been right about him being too strong to naturally fight kids his age and maybe a bit older, so when he saw the oncoming group he realized that he would have to actively hold back when fighting them. The first boy was a heavy-set boy with black hair and large hands who tried to tackle Naruto head-on. Naruto had been trained at a young age by his mother in medical ninjutsu and taijutsu, so he knew that punching larger people in the stomach area was not that effective. But there was one place on the human body that fat didn't accumulate much around it, even though it was vital to the human survival process. Naruto used this knowledge to charge head-on towards the large boy and jumped up into the air before delivering a powerful knee attack to the boy's forehead, busting his forehead open and knocking the large boy to the ground. Naruto watched for a moment as the big boy hit the ground and realized he wasn't getting back up, so he focused on dealing with the other three boys. The next boy was rather lanky with not much fat or muscle on his body, giving him a sort of praying mantis look that creeped Naruto out a bit. He threw a sloppy punch at Naruto's head, but Naruto easily caught the punch and threw it to the side. This caused the boy to get thrown off balance, leaving him open for Naruto's powerful right straight to his solar plexus. The boy dropped like a rock right before he threw up his lunch and passed out from the pain. The last two were short and much closer to Naruto's size when compared to the first three. They attacked in unison side by side, but that didn't worry Naruto at all, as all he did was jump up into the air and delivered a spin kick that caught both of the boys at the same time. Neither of the boys had even seen it coming and were laid out before they realized that they had even been hit. Kiba looked on at this kid with wide eyes as he tried to process what just happened. All he knew was this kid came out of nowhere, beat the crap out of the biggest bully in their school, and then beat up that bully's gang like it wasn't anything to him. The kid didn't even get a scratch on him, and his breathing didn't change either. Naruto looked around and saw the big kid who was punching the boy with the dog lying on top of his shoulders and head where he got slammed in the middle of the alley. The heavy-set kid was off to the side next to a large dumpster, the lanky kid was laying on top of some trash bags, and the smaller duo were passed out with one of them sleeping on top of the other one, though they were all bleeding. Man, Mom is going to wring my neck if she finds out about this, thought Naruto as he weaved a few hand signs and applied medical ninjutsu to the first boy that he had beaten up. Maybe if I fix them up enough to where they can move under their own power, she won't wring my neck. Kiba sat up and leaned against a wall in the alleyway and kept his eyes on the blonde-haired boy. His clan's ninja dog was beside him, looking around for any other potential danger, though Kiba was sure he was keeping an eye on the blonde-haired boy in case he tried something as well. Kiba was confused when he saw the boy's hand start to glow green, and even more so when he saw the boy touch the green hand to Ryuju. He watched as Ryuju's body started to glow a faint green as well, before the cut on top of his head began to heal, leaving only a small white scar. Kiba was shocked when he saw this. Really, this kid was going to give Kiba nerve damage if he kept shocking him like this. Kiba knew what this was since his sister was a vet and talked about it from time to time during dinner. This is medical ninjutsu, but how does a kid my age know how to use it? Hannah said that it was extremely difficult, requiring perfect chakra control and many years of training to utilize medical ninjutsu. So how can this kid who is no older than me do it? Wondered Kiba as he continued to watch the blonde-haired boy. Has he been receiving special training or something? When Naruto got done healing the older-looking one, he moved on and healed the cut on the fat one's forehead, then healed the damage to the lanky boy's stomach, and then healed the smaller two's busted jaws that he had dislocated from his weak spin kid. I really am going to have to watch myself. I can't believe how fragile they were, thought Naruto as he looked around before his eyes landed on Kiba, who was staring at him with the big dog with sharp teeth. I need to heal him before I can get to class. Oh, I need to hurry or I am going to be late for a very important date. Alice in Wonderland, the White Rabbit. Kiba saw the blonde kid's eyes land on him and he got a bit nervous. He was surprised when he started to walk towards him and was happy his ninja dog was there to at least give the boy reason to watch himself around him. Whoa, easy there, killer, I just want to heal your friend, so I can hurry up and get to the opening ceremony, spoke Naruto as he raised his hands submissively to the large dog who was eyeing him like a snack. Akuya, calm down. He is using medical ninjutsu, so maybe he can help me out. I don't feel like explaining to Mom how I got my butt handed to me or she will really put me through the ringer, spoke Kiba as he started to pet the ninja dog. The ninja dog looked at Kiba and nodded its head a bit before backing off to let Naruto heal Kiba. Naruto started to apply medical ninjutsu to Kiba's body and decided to make conversation while he waited. So you're going to the academy as well? What year are you in? Spoke Naruto with a smile on his face that seemed to brighten up the alleyway. Kiba was shocked that someone this strong was going to the academy, but decided to answer him anyways. Yeah, this is my first year, and you, asked Kiba, wondering if the boy really was as young as he looked. Yeah, this is my first year as well. I was supposed to come here with my mom, but her and my two sisters started to get into some weird arguments, so I just slipped out the back not wanting to be late. But then I ran into you and will probably end up being late anyways, spoke Naruto with anime tears in his eyes even while he was healing Kiba. Kiba looked at the kid like he was an idiot, but wasn't stupid enough to point that out. Why are you going to the academy anyways? You have to be at least Chunin in strength, so why go to the academy at all, spoke Kiba, thinking if he was that strong he wouldn't go to the academy and jump straight into some more advanced stuff. Well, my mom says that geniuses who skip grades and end up in the shinobi forces to quickly always get scared for life because they see something that they were not ready for, leaving them unable to remain ninja, spoke Naruto, remembering the argument his mom and some man in an animal mask had one day. I don't really get it all that much, but all I really want to do is make some friends, and my sis Shizune said that the perfect place to do that was the academy, so I don't mind going even if I know some of the stuff already. Wait, you don't have any friends either, spoke Kiba, surprised that someone as cool as this guy didn't have lackeys hanging off of him left and right. That is a bit surprising. Well, I haven't been allowed to leave my clan's compound very much because of my mom, so I haven't been able to make any friends my own age, spoke Naruto with a bit of a depressed tone. Really, all I have ever done was hang out with my mom and sisters, or train, which is always fun to do. That is why I am so excited to go to the academy. Kiba nodded his head, understanding where Naruto was coming from. Yeah, I know what you mean. My mom is way too up in my business for it to be normal. All she wants me to do is do chores or get in touch with my inner animal, and yet she won't even tell me what I am supposed to do, ranted Kiba, remember all of the crap his mother had said. I mean, how am I supposed to do that when I don't even know what that is? Naruto nodded his head, seeing how that could be a problem. Well, it seems we both have some troublesome mothers, don't we, spoke Naruto with a smile on his face as he stuck his hand out for Kiba to shake. My name is Naruto, and yours is? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't introduce myself before. My name is Kiba Inuzuka, a member of the Inuzuka clan and a first year at the Leaf Academy, spoke Kiba with a smile on his face. I am going to be the rookie of the year, and I don't care how much training you already have. Naruto nodded his head as he and Kiba began to walk towards the academy together as they talked. What is a rookie of the year? I don't get what it is supposed to be, spoke Naruto as he scratched his head, feeling he was missing something that should be important to him but wasn't. Kiba looked over at Naruto with a shocked look on his face, not understanding how Naruto didn't know of the Rookie of the Year award. The Rookie of the Year award is an award that they give to one student in each of the years, proving that he was the best of that year compared to his peers. It basically means you are the best in your class, finished Kiba with a grin on his face, expecting Naruto to challenge him to the award or something like that. Oh, that sounds interesting, but I don't really care about getting awards. I just want to have a good time is all, spoke Naruto with a smile on his face as he enjoyed talking to someone his own age for once. He loved his family, but sometimes you need a change of pace, you know. What? How can you say that? With your skills you could easily win the awards hands down. Well, that is until I really start to get into my training, spoke Kiba as he puffed up his chest again. He didn't even notice that the ninja dog that was with him was now gone. Maybe, but what would be the point? All awards are as pieces of paper with some abnormal writing on them that only catch dust over time, spoke Naruto, starting to bum Kiba out with his lack of interest in something that Kiba had thought was cool, until he started to talk to Naruto about it. Dude, how can you say that? Spoke an exasperated Kiba as he looked at Naruto, trying to figure him out. He didn't even notice all of the strange looks they were getting, or more specifically Naruto was getting. Well, that's what my mom says. She got a bunch of awards for her skills with medical ninjutsu, but she says she has never used them since she got them and hasn't thought about them since. She says they're nice to have, but pointless in the end, spoke Naruto as he looked up at the blue sky and felt the cool breeze brush against his skin. He really was enjoying today. Ugh, you're impossible, spoke Kiba as he dropped his head in defeat. Ha ha ha, laughed Naruto, seeing Kiba in such a weird light. A fair deal away. Inuzuka had been looking for her son for the past 5 minutes, but it was like he was trying to avoid detection as his scent ran through all the back alleys. he could find, and many of them were covered in other foul scents that masked Kiba's original scent and were disgusting to Tsum's sensitive sense of smell. Tsum has an animalistic look similar to that of her son Kiba. She has long, spiky, untamed brown hair, vertical slit-like pupils, elongated canine teeth and nails. She also has the clan Fong markings on her cheeks, as well as markings over her eyes and a dark shade of purple lipstick. She wears the standard outfit of a Konoha shinobi, consisting of flak jacket and a black suit underneath with the sleeves rolled up and bandages around her legs. "Damn, I swear that kid is a handful," spoke Tsum as she continued to walk through the village looking for her son. She was starting to figure she should just go to the academy and wait for him there, but she was worried Kiba would get himself into trouble like always. Kuramaru is an adult canine with a wolfish appearance. As his name suggests, he has black fur with a white underside. He is missing his left ear and wears an eye patch over his right eye. He was easily as tall as any teenager around. "He is a handful, but maybe something good will come out of it," growled out Kuramaru as he walked beside his master and sniffed the air looking for his master's pup. He knew that pup since he was a newborn pup, and so he knew the boy's scent better than anyone, except maybe Tsum herself. "Ha! Doubt it," spoke Tsum, as she continued to look around for her son, when she saw one of the ninja dogs from her clan's compound coming running towards them. "Well, if it isn't Akuya. What are you doing here?" "Lady Tsum, you will never believe what I just saw," spoke Akuya, as she looked up at the leader of their pack. She bowed a bit in respects to Kuramaru, showing that she knew he was still the dominant ninja dog of their clan. "Does this have something to do about Kiba?" spoke Tsum, all of a sudden getting worried about her accident-prone son. She wanted to just wrap the little idiot up in bubble wrap, but she knew he still would have found some way to hurt himself. "Yes, it seems you were right, he did get into trouble, and things were not looking good for him for a while there," spoke Akuya. But before she could finish, Kuramaru cut across her with his own question. "Why did you not protect him then? It was your job to make sure he didn't get too badly injured," spoke Kuramaru as he looked over at the smaller ninja dog that had what appeared to be a disgruntled look on her dog face. Kiba had run into a group of bullies a few years older than him who ganged up on him for running into their leader. "I couldn't attack them unless they did some real damage," spoke Akuya, looking Kuramaru straight in the eye, so that he could see how angry she was at his poor accusations of her guarding skills. "All right, enough of that, you two. Akuya, tell me what happened," demanded Tsum as she looked down on Akuya, waiting for her to start spilling the beans on the condition her son was in. "Well, they attacked him and were beating him up, but right before I went to attack, another boy arrived that was Kiba's age and defeated all four of the older boys all by himself," spoke Akuya, getting a look of surprise from Tsum and Kuramaru, which gave her some smug satisfaction. "Wait, so you're telling me that a boy Kiba's age defeated 5 other boys that were older and more skilled than him?" spoke Tsum, as she sat down on a bench on the side of the street. It wasn't uncommon to see an Inuzuka talking to their ninja dog, so nobody but a few children paid her and her conversation any mind. "Well, they were older, but obviously far from as skilled. He defeated them all with one attack, each leaving them bleeding and unconscious on the ground before healing them in Kiba," spoke Akuya as she sat on her, but feeling it was less energy-taxing and more comfortable as well. "The pup must be very skilled if he was able to take on a small pack of older boys alone," spoke Kuramaru as he looked from Akuya to Tsum, who had a strange look in her eyes. "You said the boy healed the boys he defeated and Kiba. What do you mean he just bandaged them up and went for help?" asked Tsum, figuring the boy may have performed some basic first aid before looking for someone who was more skilled in the healing arts to take a look at the kids he beat up. "And oh, that was the amazing part. The boy actually used medical ninjutsu like Hanasama. But for you humans instead of us dogs," spoke Akuya in what Tsum perceived was excitement. Tsum was shocked to say the least, knowing just how hard Hana had to work just to get her skill to the level they were at now, and even that wasn't some great feat for a child. To be able to use it who was more than likely 6 to 10 years old was nothing short of amazing. She was getting more and more curious about this mystery boy by the moment. "The pup really is something if he is already that strong at such a young age," spoke Kuramaru with a grin revealing his long canines. "I want to meet this little super genius and see if he lives up to the hype." "Kuramaru, you don't need to go about scarring children," spoke Tsum, as she looked off into the distance with a strange look on her face. "Strong, the same age as Kiba," skilled in medical ninjutsu. Could he be her son? I have been hearing so much about, wondered Tsum as she was brought out of her thoughts by Akuya. He really was amazing. And the best part is I think Kiba may have made his first friend, spoke Akuya. But then she said, and don't worry, he isn't following the boy around like a lost puppy if that was what you were thinking. Kuramaru nodded his head, happy that Kiba wasn't letting someone else lead him. It wasn't good for his status in the Inuzuka clan, to say the least. Kuramaru was having his own thought about what was going on. But his master seemed to have something to ask Akuya, so he stayed quiet for now. Akuya, do you know who this mystery boy is? Asked Tsum, as she looked down on Akuya with expecting eyes like she was waiting for something to happen. Yeah, he said his name was Naruto, spoke Akuya, seeing Tsum's eyes, almost telling her to continue. He didn't give a last name though, finished Akuya. Huh. I wonder why the brat didn't tell Kiba his last name, spoke Kuramaru, as he figured the boy was just being a bit too secretive for his tastes. Maybe he doesn't want any fans following him around, spoke Tsum, as she stood up and began to walk towards the academy. Why would the boy have fans? Asked Akuya as she walked alongside Tsum's left side. That boy, if I am right, is basically royalty in this village, spoke Tsum, as she jumped up on the roofs, quickly followed by the two ninja dogs. Sounds interesting, spoke Kuramaru as he walked alongside Tsum's right side. Tsum didn't say anything after that and just bolted towards the academy, hoping to find her son soon, so that she could give him an earful. With Naruto and Kiba. Kiba sneezed a bit, which caused Naruto to bless him and to see if he was okay. After Kiba cleaned out his nose a bit, which Naruto found was weird, he sniffed the air for a moment before sighing, which Naruto found weird again. I don't know this for sure, but I think someone is talking about me, spoke Kiba as he looked around him. Anything good? Joked Naruto with a smile. Jerk, spoke Kiba as his shoulders slumped. Whoa, spoke Naruto as he looked forward, seeing the academy coming into view along with lots of other kids, and their parents all were wishing them the best of luck in following their dreams of becoming great ninja one day. Wow, this is awesome, spoke Kiba as he ran forward with Naruto close behind. Not far away, Kushina, Tsunade, and Shizen were walking around the courtyard where all of the other parents were wishing their children the best of luck, hoping to find Naruto. But oddly, they hadn't been able to find him yet. They found it weird since they were sure he ran off at top speeds to get to the academy, so he should have already been there. Damn it, this is starting to piss me off, spoke Tsunade, as she ignored more people who tried to walk up to her and kiss her ass. She really wasn't in the mood for false niceties and just wanted to find her son as soon as possible. Calm down, Lady Tsunade, I am sure he is around here somewhere. He probably just made some friends and is off having some fun, spoke Shizen, trying to keep his master from going crazy in front of all these people. She knew Tsunade was worried about Naruto, and in all actuality so was she, but they couldn't afford to let their emotions rule them right now. Maybe he already went inside, spoke Kushina as she looked up into the windows of the academy where the classrooms were, hoping to see a blonde-haired boy, but to her disappointment she saw nobody who even resembled Naruto. Found you, came a voice from behind Tsunade, Shizun, and Kushina that had a unique tone to it. Tsunade wasn't in the mood and turned around to snap at whoever it was that was trying to brown-nose her, but was shocked when she came face to face with Tsum Inuzuka. Tsum, what are you doing here and why are you looking for me? Asked Tsunade, knowing that Tsum wasn't the type to play the political game, and was actually an honest person who wanted what was best not only for the village and her clan, but for others as well. My son is starting his first year at the academy today, so I was going to wish him the best of luck, but we kinda got separated for a bit, spoke Tsum with a smile on her feral face. The reason I came to you was because I figured he would be with your son Naruto. All three of the girls were confused by what Tsum meant, so Kushina figured she should ask what was on everyone's minds. Why would you assume Naruto was with your son? And why do you think they would be with us? Asked Kushina, trying to figure out whatever it was that they were missing. Tsum looked surprised by the question and took a quick look around before looking back at them with a confused look on her face. Strange. I was sure that it was your son who helped my son out if what Akuya said was true, spoke Tsum, as she looked around for another minute. That is strange. But if Kiba is not with your son, then where is your son? Naruto ran ahead of us because we were having a Heated discussion about personal matters, and we haven't been able to find him since, spoke Tsunade, with a sharp look in her eyes. What is all this about, Tsum? So maybe it was your son who helped mine out with those bullies earlier, spoke Tsum. But then she saw the expecting looks on all three of the girls' faces and decided to elaborate. Earlier Kiba ran off with one of the ninja dogs from my clan named Akuya, but he got himself in some trouble with some bullies from the school. He was saved though by a blonde-haired boy who fits the description I heard about your son and assumed it was him. Akuya said that they walked off together talking like old friends, so I assumed that they would have ended up with you three eventually. Tsunade was so mad that her knuckles started to pop. That boy of mine leaves my sight for 10 minutes and is already getting into fights. I will have to teach him to pick and choose his battles from now on, thought Tsunade, not even thinking about how strong Naruto was compared to even an experienced genin. Kushina was relieved that Naruto was alright since she had been having flashbacks the more time they spent looking for him, about when Kumo Ninja tried to kidnap her when she was smaller and feared that maybe the same was happening to Naruto. It is good he is safe, and I am glad he helped Tsum's son out, but that boy is too noble for his own good. He could get hurt like that in the future one day, thought Kushina with a worried tone in her mind. Naruto is such a good boy. I am sure he will win more than a few hearts in the academy with that kind of attitude, thought Shizune as she sighed in relief knowing that Naruto was alright. She wondered how Tsunade would take Naruto dating, especially after their argument earlier, but decided to put that off until it was needed. Looking around, Shizune saw that her master and Kushina were lost in thought, so she decided to as her own question. So Naruto helped your son deal with some bullies and you were able to figure out it was Naruto just by his appearance? Asked Shizune, figuring that Naruto was distinguishable with the markings on his face and the bright warm color of his hair and eyes, but still that was a stretch of the imagination to think that Naruto was identified with just his features, since Tsunade rarely let him leave the compound fearing he would be abducted or assassinated by enemy ninja. Tsum smiled a bit, showing some fang in it as well. While there are not a lot of people here in Konoha who have hair as golden as the sun and eyes as blue as the azure sky, it was his skills with medical ninjutsu that really caught my ears, spoke Tsum as she looked down at her ninja dog and pet him a bit. Akuya said that the boy was able to heal all 5 of the bullies that he easily defeated with medical ninjutsu, that the boy did almost like it was second nature, along with my son who must have had some cuts and bruises as well. I figured there were not a lot of children that young who would use medical ninjutsu with that much skill, unless they were a child of Tsunade Senju, that is. Shizune nodded her head, seeing the logic in Tsum's assumption that Naruto was really Naruto Senju, future clan head of the Senju clan, son of the famous Tsunade Senju, genius extraordinaire, as well as other things as well that had become rumors in the village over the years. So if Naruto and your son are all right, then why are they not here, spoke Tsunade, getting back to the topic that had kept her in such a foul mood since she left her clan's compound. He is now, spoke Kuramaru as he looked over towards a tree that was in the center of the courtyard, just as a blonde-haired boy appeared carrying a brown-haired boy with him. Only Tsum could understand him, being the only Inuzuka in the areas, so when she turned around to look at the tree, Tsunade, Kushina, and Shizune were confused. But when they saw Naruto and Kiba, they instantly ran towards them, followed by Tsum and Kuramaru. With Naruto and Kiba. Kiba was shocked to say the least, and a bit dizzy, when Naruto had grabbed him when they had entered the courtyard of the academy, and then disappeared in some kind of spinning leaf vacuum, only to appear standing in a tree a few moments later. Dude, what was that? Asked Kiba, trying to keep his eyes focused on one target, so he wouldn't get motion sick and throw up in front of all the other kids and their parents. That would totally ruin his rep for the rest of his life. What? Haven't you ever traveled using the leaf style body flicker technique before? Asked Naruto, thinking that would be common for a ninja family after all. I haven't ever even heard of that jutsu, let alone experienced it, spoke Kiba as he looked down and noticed that they were high up in a tree. Dude, why are we in a freaking tree this high up in the air? I wanted to get a good view of the area, duh. Why are you so worried about it? Just use the wall walking exercise on the tree, and you won't fall down, I promise, spoke Naruto as he continued to look around the village and academy, feeling so excited. The wall walking, what? Asked Kiba, not understanding what Naruto was saying. Really, it was like this kid was speaking a second language sometimes. Naruto went to say something, but then he heard someone yell, Naruto, don't move or I promise you will regret it. Coming from Bello, that sounded awfully like his mother. When he looked down, he saw his mother looking up at him with terrifying eyes. "I am so screwed," spoke Naruto with a sad voice. Kiba heard him right before he heard, "Kiba, we are going to have a long talk when you come down," and was terrified to see his mother looking up at him with those slanted eyes of hers. "Who is that?" asked Kiba and Naruto at the same time when they looked at the other's mother and then each other at the same time as well. "My mother," they both said before their heads dropped comically. "Utaha," spoke Kiba and Naruto at once. "Yeep," was all they said as their mothers started to come up the tree with determined looks on their faces. "We're dead," was all Kiba could say looking down at his mom. "Without a doubt," spoke Naruto, waiting for whatever was to come to come. Uzumaki and Senju Chapter 3. Inside of the Uchiha clan was a large group of Uchiha who ran their clan and decided on its future. They had decided that they needed to talk about Tsunade Senju's son and how he would affect their standing in the clan. "Who would have suspected that Tsunade Senju would have a child?" spoke one of the elders. "This could ruin our already poor standing in the village." Another Uchiha looked at him with an annoyed look before saying, "How many times are you going to say that? Ever since the boy was born, all you have done was complain about the child, Tsunade, and the Senju clan as a whole." The elder looked over at the younger Uchiha with an angry look on his face. "I cannot help it. That boy could single-handedly revive our rival clan should he be given the chance," spoke the elder. "It sickens me to think that the Senju may make a comeback. Regardless of what we want or believe, there is nothing that we can do about the Senju or their members," spoke Fugaku as he sat in the center of the congregation. "I am more worried about our own position in the village being challenged now that this boy has started his ninja career." "What do we know about the boy?" asked one of the elders as he looked over at Fugaku. "Not much, I am afraid. He was born to Tsunade Senju and Ken Uzumaki, both highly skilled ninja, and both are from nearly extinct yet powerful clans," spoke one of the elders. "Yes, and Tsunade has kept the boy hidden away in her clan compound ever since he was born and nearly assassinated when the Nine Tails broke loose and tried to attack the village," spoke Fugaku. Another elder started to speak and asked, "So what about his skills? Is he strong, ordinary, or is he weak?" "We do not know, but if I had to guess, I would say that the boy was pretty strong considering who his mother is," spoke Fugaku with a grimace. "Yes, Tsunade Senju is one of the 3 legendary shinobi who was able to fight Hanzo the Salamander and live to tell the tale," spoke one of the elders. "Yes, and on top of that she is the greatest medical ninja in the world," spoke another elder with an unhappy look on his face. "Plus there is her super strength to consider as well." Fugaku's face looked like he had bitten into a lemon after hearing this. Yes, Tsunade's strength is legendary, and is said to be able to kill just about anyone with a single punch. It is possible that the boy may have inherited some of her strength. "Have you ever met or even seen the boy?" asked Fugaku looking at the elders. "No, but we have heard rumors about him on the rare occasions that he was taken out of the Senju clan compound," spoke an elder. Maybe we should have someone watch him," spoke one of the elders with a thoughtful look on his face. "That wouldn't be wise, as Tsunade and those living with her will undoubtedly keep a very close eye on the boy. If we are caught spying on someone from our own village, the repercussions will be ungodly," spoke Fugaku. "That is true, but as I recall, Fugaku, you have a son who is about the same age as the Senju heir. We could use him to keep an eye on the boy without getting us into any trouble," spoke one of the elders. That isn't a very bad idea. Sasuke has been looking for a way to prove himself, and this will be a great opportunity for him," spoke Fugaku. "Be careful, dear, not to forget that this is your son we are talking about. You had better not be putting him into any situation that will cause him any harm," spoke Mikoto looking towards her husband. "Of course not," spoke Fugaku with a calm look on his face. "He will not be trying to assassinate the boy, simply keeping an eye on him and his skills. See that you remember that," spoke Mikoto with a sharp look. "I will not forget," spoke Fugaku with a calm look on his face. "Back to the topic at hand. We will have Sasuke watch the Senju, then we will make our plans after we have gathered enough data," spoke another elder. Agreed, spoke everyone at once. Naruto and Kiba were currently sitting inside of their classroom looking like their souls were trying to escape their bodies. Their mothers had not been as lenient as they had hoped they would have been. Not that they really believed they would get off light, and had lectured them forever, leaving them feeling worn out before the day had begun. Kiba's mother was as vicious as always. She went on to not only berate him for making her worry, but for also losing his fight against the other boys. She didn't care that they were older, more numerous, or that they all had more training than he did. All she cared about was that he had lost. Kiba wasn't exactly stupid enough to argue that with his mother, but that didn't mean he was pleased knowing when he got home his mother was going to put him through what she called doggy boot camp. Naruto, on the other hand, was trying to recover from his mother's sickly sweet tone that had sent shivers down his spine. Apparently he had been playing Mr. Hero, which was not good, and now he was in trouble. He wasn't used to being in trouble, and now that he thought about it he realized he had never been punished before. He didn't think he had ever really done anything that would be considered bad. But he figured he should ask his Shizune since she was always the calmest out of the 3 women that he lived with. Naruto briefly remembered on one occasion when his mother was teaching him medical ninjutsu, his sister Kushina had walked in and told him she wanted to start teaching him something new. Naruto's mother and Kushina then started to get into a fight, but Shizune calmed them both down with her logical mind. She later told Naruto that once when he was younger they destroyed a large section of the downtown market over a similar argument, though he had been too young to remember. Naruto found this to be interesting, though really childish. It seemed that his family members had no qualms resorting to violence to get what they wanted, which oddly enough usually had something to do with him. They were great people, just really strong, while also very violent women. The classroom was really lively. There were kids talking to one another about all kinds of things. Some were talking about becoming powerful ninja like some of the more famous ninja of the village, while others were talking about how their parents were ninja. They seemed really amped about following in their parents' footsteps and learning to do all of the amazing things that their parents or idols could do. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, which was weird, but no one really noticed. They were all too excited about their first day in the academy, but for some reason the other students who had already been there for at least 1 year were looking at them like they were stupid. It was like they were calling them poor bastards with their eyes, but didn't have the heart to say it. Some of the kids were looking their way, which Kiba found strange, especially when they started to whisper to themselves and point. Kiba wanted to bash their skulls in thinking they were talking about them, but oddly Naruto stopped him, not even looking at the other kids, as if what they were saying didn't matter to him. Kiba found it strange but decided it was something better left till later to talk about. Kiba heard some more people talking about their parents and what great ninja they were, which gave him an idea. He looked over at Naruto and saw him looking around with wonder and interest on his face, though to be fair Kiba was doing the same thing not too long ago. His eyes kept jumping from one person to another, then to the door, before he would look out the window for a moment and then repeat the process. "Hey Naruto, who were those 3 women who came looking for you?" asked Kiba, watching his friend turn his head from the window to look at him. "I mean, you said one of them was your mom, and judging by your looks I would say it was the blonde one, but who were those other ladies?" Naruto's eyebrow rose a bit as he thought back to when they were surrounded by the adults. "Oh, you were talking about Shizune-chan and Kushina-chan, aren't you?" spoke Naruto with a happy smile on his face. "They are like my sisters, even though neither of them actually are. The black-haired one is named Shizune, and she was an apprentice to my mom when she was younger. The redhead is Kushina, and she is the head of the Uzumaki clan here in Konoha, as well as my aunt." Kiba was a bit surprised hearing that Naruto's mom had her own apprentice and that someone as rich and famous as a clan head was accompanying them. He had assumed that Naruto was just a kid from an average family, so why would the head of a clan come to see him off to school? All around them more and more people were listening in on their conversation. A particularly nosy girl with long blonde hair was straining herself to hear them better for sure. She loved gossip more than anything, and this was juicy in her opinion. Some people were not interested in the conversation, like a particularly lazy-looking boy who didn't seem to have gotten a lot of sleep last night. His head was already on his desk and his back was going up and down at a steady rate. He wasn't snoring, but he was defiantly asleep. To the sleeping boy's right was a particularly heavy-set boy munching on a large bag of chips his mother had given him to keep up his strength until lunchtime. He was eating them very quickly, reminding many people of a vacuum cleaner on the floor. He was so focused on his lunch that he didn't even see anyone except out of his peripheral vision because his attention was so focused on his food. Why would a clan head come with you and your mom to the academy? Is she a good friend of your mom? Asked Kiba, trying to learn more about his new friend. He was really interested in Naruto right now, so it was understandable that he wanted to learn as much as quickly as possible. I mean, everything happened so fast, so I didn't really get a good chance to talk to them. My mom was doing that for everyone in spades. Naruto grinned a bit, seeing his new friend slump down, thinking about how his mom had grilled him earlier. It seemed that, unlike Naruto, Kiba was known for getting into trouble with his mom. Naruto found it funny in all honesty, but Kiba surely didn't. Naruto absently wondered what being grounded was like, and what a punishment while grounded was. Well, Kushina-chan and my mom are good friends. But my dad was Kushina-chan's brother, which makes her my aunt. I did call her auntie once, but weirdly she sat me on her knee, looked at me with this strained but fake happy face, and told me that she was nowhere old enough to be called that yet. Spoke Naruto, shivering a bit, remembering that face Kushina had made. I was so freaked out that I called her Kushina-nichan, and she really liked it. Since she didn't make that face again, I started to call her that from then on. Kiba started laughing at Naruto's plight. It reminded him greatly of his own time with his mother and sister. They both liked to think they were young and beautiful, though Kiba didn't see it, and would beat the crap out of anyone who said otherwise. Kiba learned this the hard way when he referred to his mom once as an old nag. Long story short, he was in the kennels after that, cleaning up after the puppies. It was probably one of the worst days of Kiba's young life. Oh, so that kinda makes you a clan heir until Kushina has her own child, huh? Spoke Kiba. He saw Naruto start to say something, but then the door opened up and in came a boy that Kiba knew all too well and didn't like at all. Before Naruto could say anything, Kiba cut him off. Oh great, he's here. Naruto stopped what he was saying and looked towards the door and saw a small boy about his height with spiky black hair and coal-black eyes standing there looking around the room with a harsh look. His skin was really pale and his clothes were all black. There was something about the boy that made Naruto feel as if he should know him or something like that. Naruto looked over at Kiba to see Kiba's fangs showing slightly. It was obvious that he didn't like the boy at all. Who is he? Asked Naruto, snapping Kiba out of his stare. When Kiba looked over at Naruto, his face was still far from happy. I am guessing you two have some previous experience with one another? Kiba snorted a bit before looking back at the little kid, who seemed to be looking for something. That is Sasuke Uchiha, one of the clan heirs to the Uchiha clan, and a real prick, spoke Kiba, not noticing the shocked look on Naruto's face. What? It is true. Naruto looked down at the boy with a shocked look on his face. If there was one group of people besides maybe the Shimura clan, it was the Uchiha clan that his mother had tried to keep him away from the most. She didn't have anything good to say about them, and oddly neither did Kushina, who was usually a kind and happy person willing to accept just about anyone, though she didn't dislike them to the levels that Tsunade seemed to. Only Shizen had been able to keep a neutral stance towards them, leaving her the only one to explain the relations of the Senju, Uzumaki, and Uchiha clans to Naruto. She told Naruto about how competitive the Uchiha clan and Senju clans were with one another, and how much they hated each other. The clan wars were particularly interesting to hear about since Naruto hadn't known just how powerful his clan had been until then. No wonder their libraries had so many interesting and unique techniques inside of them. The legends revolving around Naruto's great-grandfather, Hashirama Senju, leader of the Senju clan, first Hokage, and Madara Uchiha, leader of the Uchiha clan, were nothing short of amazing. Naruto didn't know which one he thought was cooler. His great-grandfathers would release ninjutsu or Madara Uchiha's amazing ocular abilities. Obviously his great-grandfather won, so maybe would style was superior, or maybe his grandfather was just something special. From what Naruto had learned from his mother, and from the scrolls inside of their clan's compound, the chance of someone activating the Sharingan was low, being about 10% of the Uchiha in the Uchiha clan actually were able to awaken their clan's dojutsu. Then they had to train it up, before they had to do something that Naruto was unsure of to get to the next level in their ocular abilities. Naruto saw this as way too troublesome, as his great-grandfather's would release just had to be mastered like any other elemental bloodline, but it was just really powerful on its own. For these reasons, Naruto saw the wood release as a better bloodline than the Sharingan, but the Sharingan was still an amazing Kekkai Genkai. If the Sasuke kid was part of the Uchiha clan, then it was possible that he had the Sharingan or could have the Sharingan as well. Naruto felt a bit of sadness in his heart not having his great-grandfather's Kekkai Genkai, but shrugged his shoulders. His mother had become the most feared kunoichi in the world without any bloodline, so it wasn't like Naruto was worried about not having it in the long run. Wow, the Uchiha clan is a really powerful clan here in Konoha, spoke Naruto, getting an annoyed grunt from Kiba as he watched the boy get angrier and angrier as he looked around the room. I wonder what he is looking for. Kiba noticed the way Sasuke was looking around as well, but just flared his nostrils as he snorted his nose. Ha, probably expected there to be a round of applause when he walked into the room. Damn jerk. He was one when we were younger, and I have no doubt he is one now. Naruto was surprised by how violent his friend was being all of a sudden. What do you mean back then? Did you meet him in the past? Kiba's brow crinkled as his forehead seemed to slump over his eyes for a moment. What, he beat you up or something? Ha, he wishes. That little punk is just a brat is all. Seeing that Naruto was obviously not satisfied with that answer, he elaborated. When I was younger, my mother took me down to the park to play with some of the other kids. When I was there, I ran into Sasuke Uchiha and his brother Itachi Uchiha, who were playing there as well. Kiba just stared at Sasuke with unblinking eyes, hoping to catch the boy's eye if they passed over him. Long story short, he started to brag about his clan and how strong his brother was until we got into a big fight. Before anything serious could happen, his bother broke us up and my mother appeared out of nowhere in that jutsu you used earlier. After that, we have been enemies ever since. Naruto just looked at his friend with a deadpan expression on his face as he thought of how childish that was. He didn't want to say that to Kiba, since Kiba seemed to be quick to the trigger, but that didn't mean he was going to let Kiba's opinions of Sasuke affect his own. That day when Sasuke woken up, he knew that he was on a mission. He felt like this was his moment to prove to his dad that he had worth just as much, if even more than his older brother Itachi. He was going to show the world the Uchiha might, and he was given the perfect chance to do so by the heavens. It was no secret that the heir of the Senju clan was going to be attending the academy this year. Many were happy about this, but the Uchiha were not. They, like many others, had assumed that the Senju clan were going to die out with Tsunade, so it was a real shock to their systems when Tsunade gave birth to a son, the worst gender in the Uchiha's opinion for the Senju to have. With a son, repopulating the Senju clan would only take 2 or 3 generations if they were smart about it, but with a girl it would take a fair deal more, since unlike men, girls actually have to carry the child, not just spread their seed around. This left a really bad taste in the Uchiha clan's mouths, which really was pissing them off. The Uchiha clan figured that they were done with the Senju clan and that their rivalry had finally come to a close with them victorious, but it seemed that they were wrong. The Uchiha clan didn't like the possibility of the Senju taking their place as the strongest clan in Konoha, but there wasn't much that they could do about Tsunade or her son. In the end, there was only one logical solution to their problems. That solution was to prove to the entire world that the Uchiha clan was better than the Senju clan by having a member of the Uchiha clan outclass the member of the Senju clan in everything that he did. This would not only bring them fame and fortune, but they would be able to rub it in the faces of their lifetime enemies in the Senju clan. Fugaku wished for the first time in his life that Itachi had been born later than he had. If Itachi were the one entering the academy with the young Senju, he was sure that he would outpace him every step of the way, just like he did everyone, but alas, that just wasn't meant to be. This meant that the mission fell upon his youngest and a most ignored son, Sasuke. He now regretted not training Sasuke in a more active role like he probably should have, but these past few months had been good on the boy, helping him improve his skills, so maybe he wouldn't disappoint him. He would have trained Sasuke more just to combat the future Senju clan head, but he didn't know if the boy would be placed in the academy early to get stronger faster, or if he would even enter the academy and just get home trained by his mother, the arguably second strongest ninja currently in the village right now. Sasuke had eaten a hearty breakfast that morning and had been walked to school by his big brother Itachi. The whole way he had searched the streets looking for anyone who looked like a possible Senju. His father had told him about how uncouth they were, and who his mother was, so he was looking around for anyone who matched both of these descriptions. What he hadn't known was that Itachi took him to the side of the academy that he knew the Senju wouldn't enter from. The Senju were on one side of the village and the Uchiha were on the other, with the academy being in the middle. This way he was sure that Sasuke wouldn't be able to make a scene and embarrass them while on the way to the academy. After Itachi dropped him off, Sasuke went searching all over the academy looking for this Senju heir that everyone was talking about. Several people tried to talk to him since he was the prodigy's little brother and they believed he would be one too, but he ignored them to keep to his mission like a shinobi should. Soon he realized that the Senju must have already gone inside and quickly ran through the academy looking for him. He checked everywhere, the cafeteria, the advanced classes, the teacher's lounge, but no matter where he went he still couldn't find the future of the Senju clan. Eventually he figured the boy must have been in his classroom, as it was the only place left to look. Sasuke ran as fast as he could, thinking that once again fate had smiled upon him. Now it would be so much easier to outshine this Senju being in the same class as him and all. When he got to his classroom, he threw back the door and entered just as fast. The first thing he did was start to look around the room. He noticed that there were a lot of people looking at him, but none of them matched the description that he had been given. He saw Kiba out of the corner of his eye but didn't even turn to look at such a mongrel. It was definite the future leader of the Senju clan would grace a dog-breath loser like Kiba with his presence any day of the week. Sasuke went to say something, but then he felt someone tapping on his shoulder. He turned around thinking it was the Senju, but then saw that it was someone much older. The man was about in his early 20s and had a green flak jacket on, meaning he was at least chunin in rank. Could you please take your seat now?" spoke Iruka as he looked down at Sasuke, who seemed ready to attack anything that moved. Iruka raised an eyebrow in confusion, wondering why the youngest member of the Uchiha clan that was in his class looked so battle-ready. He looked around the class and saw that everyone else was looking at Sasuke oddly as well. Iruka just sighed, hoping that this wasn't a bad sign. Iruka had been really excited about teaching this year. He was going to get the privilege to not only teach the newest prodigy of the Uchiha clan, Sasuke Uchiha, but also he was going to be teaching possibly the boy who would be recreating the Senju clan, Naruto Senju. These two were the focus of the entire village right now, and many people had great expectations for these two boys. Iruka was feeling the pressure as well, since these two boys would be training with him, which meant that he was going to be expected to teach not only them, but the entire class to the utmost of his ability. With this on his back, Iruka had spent countless sleepless hours trying to come up with the perfect curriculum to use for this class's future. Many of his friends had come up to him talking to him about what he thought about training two future ninja who would have such an influential role in their village's future, which he responded to with a few shots of sake and a migraine in the morning. He really didn't need people reminding him just how much these two boys mean to their village, as it just stressed him out further. All in all, Iruka wanted to meet Naruto Senju the most. He had been a big fan of Naruto's mother when he was younger and even considered becoming a medical ninja, though he later realized his true calling was in teaching. She had saved so many lives, and some of them had been his close friends, that it would have been hard for him not to idolize her. He wondered if Naruto had taken after her or one of the other women that he lived with. The thought of Naruto acting like anyone but Shizune was a scary thought. It was no secret that Naruto was going to be trained personally by his S-ranked kunoichi mother as he grew up, which meant he was probably a cut above the rest when compared to the other students, so if he had Kushina or Tsunade's legendary rage, then they were all screwed. This led to Iruka wondering what all Naruto knew in the ways of the shinobi. Surely he had some medical training, even if it was just basic first aid, and maybe some other shinobi training, but that image just didn't sit right in his head. He just couldn't see a child of Tsunade Senju being anything but powerful ninja with a right hook that could shatter a mountain like his mother. Iruka had laughed a bit to himself after thinking that. He was being silly, these were children who were just entering the academy, and there was no way a child that young could ever be that strong. He may be stronger than the average child, but that didn't mean he would be crazy strong like his mother. That only came with time and training, something that Naruto would still sorely need when he came to his class today. His best friend Mizuki had been acting oddly, which wasn't anything new, but he figured he would excited to train the Uchiha and Senju boys. It would help him out with the suspicion on him due to his last mission that hadn't gone so well. Iruka didn't think that Mizuki had done anything wrong, but that didn't mean Konoha wasn't going to be safe, because they surely didn't want to be sorry. Eventually Iruka entered the classroom only to almost run into a black-haired boy with matching colored eyes. Iruka noted the basic stance the boy got into when he got startled and smiled a bit, thinking that he was already starting to show promise. "All right, please sit down," spoke Iruka as he looked down towards Sasuke. Sasuke wasn't pleased, but he could tell this person was in charge, so he said sure, before walking to the second row that was still empty and sat down. Iruka walked to the center of the classroom when he saw that everyone had found a seat and were giving him their undivided attention. He smiled a bit, hoping to set a good example on the first day for his newest class. "Good afternoon, class. My name is Iruka Umino, and I will be your sensei from here on out until you graduate from this academy," spoke Iruka in a calm yet firm voice that had all of the students eyeing him closely. "I am currently ranked as a Chunin instructor, and I have been a teacher for 2 solid years, with this being the start of my 3rd, so there should be no reason to doubt my teachings or question my ability to teach you." The entire class was happy to have such a good teacher, though only a few knew where the rank of Chunin actually sat in the hierarchy system of Konoha. Some of the students were already getting antsy, while others were starting to feel the pressure. Iruka slowly began to walk back and forth in front of his desk with slow steps, using hand gestures to emphasize what he was saying. "Now the first thing I am going to do is call roll. There were 32 people assigned to my class, so I need to know who is here, who is not here, and who should not be here," spoke Iruka as he pulled out a clipboard from off of his desk. "Please be patient as I call out the names on my roster. The quicker we get through this, the faster we can move on." The sound of feet sliding across the wood floor or the rhythmic tapping of feet on the floor could be heard from all over the room. It was like no matter what Iruka did, the students would treat it like it was a big deal. This would surely wear off in time when they realized that no matter what the school taught, school would always be school. "Ami," spoke Iruka as he looked into the crowd of students. "Here," called out a young girl with light brown hair. "Taku," spoke Iruka, remembering that name from somewhere. "Right here," spoke a somewhat tall boy with multicolored eyes. "Mei," spoke Iruka, reading off the next name on the list. "Here, sensei," spoke a little girl with long light brown hair who was sitting on the front row. "Kiba Inuzuka," spoke Iruka, though he wasn't expecting the loud shout to come ringing through the classroom. "Right here, sensei," shouted Kiba as he jumped out of his desk with a big grin on his face. He was soon hit in the head with a piece of chalk that Iruka threw from the other side of the room, which got Kiba right on the forehead. "OW sensei, that hurt." Kiba was surprised that their teacher had been able to throw that piece of chalk with such precision from that distance, but figured that ninja of Konoha were world famous for a reason. Naruto chuckled a bit, seeing his friend rubbing his forehead before getting a light punch to the arm from Kiba. "Hey, don't laugh," whispered Kiba as his face turned red a bit. "Sorry, it was just so funny," spoke Naruto as he held his sides, trying to keep himself from laughing. He got a swift kick to the side of the leg by Kiba, who was still unhappy looking. "All right, I will stop laughing." With that, Kiba snorted a bit but went back to listening to the names being called out. Iruka had continued to go through a few names before he called out, "Shikamaru Nara," though there was no response. "Is Shikamaru not here?" asked Iruka as he scanned the classroom before his eyes landed on a brown-haired boy who was asleep. His friend was nudging him in his side, trying to wake him up, but it wasn't working. What did work was when a chalk eraser hit him in the head, leaving a lump that would surely be sore in a moment. The boy raised his head a bit just so his eyes could be seen. "Ow," was all he said as he rubbed his head. A majority of the class face dropped, but Iruka wasn't in the mood for this disruptive display. "Shikamaru, you need to be awake when you are in class," spoke Iruka as he checked off Shikamaru's name from his list. Shikamaru grumbled, but ignored Iruka and all of the other kids that were staring at him. Iruka went on to call out more names, and one by one he got a variety of hears before he started to work his way down to the bottom of his list. The last two names were probably going to cause the most ruckuses, so Irika had saved them for last. "Is Sasuke Uchiha here?" asked Irika, already knowing the answer. Up in front of the room, the black-haired boy, who he had almost ran into, looked up and said, "Present," though that was all he said. He leaned back and struck a cool pose that had a lot of the girls oohing and awing. Some of the boys grumbled, but other than that, they just eyed him a bit. "Is that him?" "Yeah, that is him." "Oh, he is so cute. I wonder how strong he is. I bet he is a genius and knows a bunch of super cool ninja stuff. I bet he graduates early like his brother." "Ah, but that means we won't get to see him as much." "Yeah, but you can't stop a genius like him." "Yeah, that makes sense." The girls continued to converse with one another, talking about this and that, though it almost all revolved around the young Uchiha. Kiba heard this and started to get annoyed, not liking that Sasuke got this kind of reaction when his name was called, but all he got was a piece of chalk to the forehead. The class continued to gossip for a moment, though Sasuke acted like he didn't even know they were there and just leaned back like he didn't have a care in the world. Eventually, though, Irika cleared his throat, getting everyone's attention again. "All right, one more name and we can get started with today's activities," spoke Irika as he looked over at Naruto. Naruto was dreading what was about to happen. He hadn't expected people to be so forward over things like this, and was worried what they would do when his name was called out. "Is Naruto Uzumaki Senju here?" Everyone went quiet as they began to look around. Naruto felt like he was hiding from the law like a fugitive, but knew that he wouldn't be able to get away. Slowly he stood up and felt all of the eyes in the classroom land on him. It felt like they were boring holes in him with their eyes, but the worst two were Kiba and Sasuke. Sasuke was looking at him with a look that spoke of how much he wanted to beat him. Whether it was beating him up, or just at academics, Naruto couldn't tell. He just knew he wanted to avoid the boy as much as possible. Those black eyes really freaked him out. They were like two black holes that were sucking up all of the goodness in the room, and were almost impossible to look away from. Naruto hadn't seen someone stare with that much intensity at anything in his entire life. The other one was Kiba. Kiba's look was one of pure shock, like what a superhero would look like if his sidekick of many years revealed himself to be an arch-villain or something. It wasn't a bad look, but Naruto felt that he may have seen a bit of betrayal in his eyes that he hadn't meant to cause to his first real friend. That was his age. Naruto didn't know what to say when he looked into Kiba's eyes, so he just looked away and over towards the teacher. Here was all Naruto could say, though it was said in a shy manner. Naruto wasn't used to being around a lot of people he didn't know, which left him somewhat shy around crowds and new people. He liked meeting new people, but that didn't mean that he wasn't worried about making a fool of himself or something like that. Instantly, the entire classroom erupted like a volcano, spewing questions and other things like that instead of molten hot lava. He was crowded instantly, and that feeling of confusion and loss started to overcome Naruto as he tried to make sense of what was going on. A blonde-haired girl was in front of him, asking him questions like, "What is it like being the heir to the Senju clan?" Or, "How strong are you?" Naruto assumed that this girl wanted to be a deep-cover spy or something by the way she liked to gather information and things like that. She definably wasn't the shy type, that was for sure. Soon, though, a loud explosion-like sound roared through the classroom, causing everyone to look around with shocked expressions on their faces. They saw Irika standing there with his hands in a weird position that many of them didn't realize what it was. But Naruto and Sasuke did. "That is enough. Now everyone go sit back down, and this time try not to embarrass yourselves like this," spoke Irika as he pasted the kids to give Naruto some air. He saw the boy was shocked, which was understandable, but he couldn't make the rest of the class wait while the boy caught his breath, so he went back to talking, trying to get the class back on track. When Naruto sat down, he shook his head back and forth for a moment to clear his head. He hadn't ever experienced anything like that before, and honestly he never really wanted to again. He didn't like that many people surrounding him trying to talk to him all at once. It was confusing and did a number on his nerves. Naruto felt someone tapping on his shoulder and looked over to see Kiba staring at him with shock. He seemed unable to say anything, but his hand lifted up from the wood desk and then pointed at him for a moment before he said, "You're Naruto Senju?" Naruto didn't know what to do, so he shrugged his shoulders a bit. Yeah. Sorry for not telling you sooner, but I just didn't want you to freak out like everyone else did, spoke Naruto, hoping that Kiba didn't start treating him differently. Naruto had been told by his mother for a long time that he was going to be treated differently, so he should just get used to it early. Naruto hadn't known what she meant, but Shizen had broken it down, and how his position in the village would affect his life. Naruto didn't like the idea of having to figure out who were fake friends and who were real friends, which is why he went by just Naruto when he met Kiba, but now it seemed he wouldn't be able to do that to the other people in his class. Kiba ran his fingers through his wild hair for a moment before he burst out laughing. Naruto looked at him owlishly for a moment before he started to laugh too. He didn't know why, but it felt natural. It was all good fun until they were both hit in the heads by pieces of chalk. Naruto picked up the chalk and rolled it in his fingers for a moment before looked down at the center of the room where Iruka was looking at them with his hand still extended from where he threw the chalk. Man, he is good, spoke Kiba as he rubbed another sore spot. The twin chalk technique. Amazing, spoke Naruto in a dramatic voice like he was in some kind of action movie. Iruka heard this and the vein in his neck started to pulse a bit. Don't give random things stupid nicknames, shouted Iruka, forgetting who he was shouting at, before putting his hand over his mouth. His heart stopped for a moment, but when he heard laughter he was a bit confused. Naruto found it hilarious the way Iruka responded to him naming the chalk attack he used against him and Kiba. Sorry, Iruka-sensei. We will calm down for a bit, spoke Naruto, as he tossed back the white chalk towards Iruka with amazing accuracy in which Iruka caught. All right, back to what I was saying, spoke Iruka as he swiped his hand across his forehead in relief. Kiba and Naruto looked at one another before grinning. So is there anything else you are not telling me? Perhaps you are actually the Hokage in disguise, spoke Kiba with a sinker in his tone. No, but I am really good at eating a bowl of ramen. It seems to be a habit of the Uzumaki, spoke Naruto, thinking of the instant ramen packet that Kushina had tried to give him for lunch, until Shizen threw that idea out the window and handed him a bento with all kinds of good and healthy foods inside of it. I could go for some beef ramen about right now, whispered Kiba, not seeing the deviant look flash across Naruto's eyes as he grinned a bit. The grin made him look like a fox, but Kiba wasn't paying much attention as he had turned to watch Iruka as he drew something on the chalkboard. Then let's go get something to eat, spoke Naruto as he stood up slowly, but Kiba grabbed him by the arm before he could get anywhere. Dude, where are you going? Whispered Kiba, though there was a hint of shock in his voice. I am hungry, so I am going to get some ramen from this great stand not too far away, spoke Naruto as he removed Kiba's hand from his wrist and started to sneak away. You can come with if you want. That was the last thing Naruto said as he snuck out of the classroom. Kiba didn't know what to say, but he was just thankful everyone was paying such rapt attention to Iruka that nobody noticed what they were doing. Kiba thought about it and realized he was already in trouble, so what was a little bit more going to hurt? He slowly stood up and began to walk out of the classroom, hoping that nobody saw him. Unfortunately, a certain bug boy noticed him leaving, as did a young blue-haired girl. But neither of them said anything as one didn't really care, and the other was far too shy to say anything. Later, Naruto and Kiba had snuck out of their classroom to go get something to eat. They had intended to go back to class as soon as they had gotten done eating, but soon were too caught up in having fun. They had met the owner of the ramen stand and his daughter, who was a bit older than they were, but soon they were all laughing and joking around like old friends. The stand was nice enough, had a variety of places to sit down. Like Naruto and Kiba, you could sit at the bar, but there was an entire side that was filled with booths and tables for people who wanted to be surrounded by whoever it was that was with them. Naruto and Kiba had thought about getting a seat over there, but after talking with the chief's daughter Ayam, they decided to stay at the bar and talk with her. They had been laughing it up, having a good old time, though Naruto had been burning through his allowance since he had unfortunately inherited his father's ravenous appetite as well as his insatiable love for ramen. Soon the ramen bowls started to pile up until they were stacked higher than Naruto was tall. Kiba's eyes were wide, never even believing someone could eat that much food. It was impossible since someone shouldn't be able to eat more than their own body weight, but it seemed Naruto was an exception to that rule. Kiba was worried about the bill though, There was no way he would ever be able to afford that much food with his allowance that he had already burned though half of. The owner was the same way. His eyes were the size of diner plates when he saw Naruto damn near inhaling the ramen he had made for him and began to make it much faster. He had his daughter cleaning the dishes while he made the ramen. He was actually worried he would run out of dishes or noodles with all of the food that the little blonde-haired boy was eating, but he could also see money signs in his eyes as well. Ayam was going crazy trying to figure out what was going on. One moment 2 kids walked into her father's ramen shop and started to order food like any other person. But then the blonde started to suck down the noodles like an endless vacuum. She was so shocked that she was running on autopilot for the first half hour trying to get her mind to play catch up with what was going on. In the back of her mind, she was wondering why her father hadn't limited the boy yet. The amount of noodles he had eaten was obviously going to cause a large bill to escalate. So what if the boy couldn't afford to pay them? She knew that they could always bill the parents, but she didn't think her father operated that way. There was no way an ordinary family could afford to eat like this every day and not be in some major debt after all. "Hey Dad, can I talk to you?" spoke Ayam as she whispered into her father's ear. She saw him nod and walked to the back to talk to him for a bit. When they were behind a closed wooden door, Ayam turned to look at her father. "Why are you letting that kid raise up such a large bill? You can't possibly expect him to pay it." Tucci looked at his daughter for a moment before smiling. He chucked a bit before saying, "You probably can't tell this from a first look, but that boy is from a clan." He saw the surprised look on his daughter's face and chucked a bit more. "You need to be a bit more attentive, Ayam-chan. This is a ninja village after all." Ayam puffed her cheeks out a bit at being chided in such a way. "Hey, I was going to be a kunoichi, but someone couldn't run the ramen stand on his own." Ayam then lifted her ladle up a bit in a threatening manner and was satisfied when she saw her dad start to sweat. "Haha, well, I didn't think you really wanted to be a ninja. You always said how you wanted to follow in your old man's footsteps. Plus you're still young, so I am sure you could still become a ninja if you really wanted to." Tucci was relieved when his daughter lowered her ladle a bit. He knew how she could be when she was upset and had that thing, and trust him, it wasn't good. "I don't really care about that. I just don't want you trying to bill some poor kid with a hug bill that you know he can't afford. But I see now that I was worried for nothing." Ayam went to say something, but 2 girly screams came from the front room which shocked her and her father. "What was that?" "I don't know, but I will find out," spoke Tucci as he walked out of the back room. Bit earlier. Naruto was polishing off his last bowl when he saw the kind ramen chief and his daughter leave to go do something that he had no idea what was. He drank the broth before placing his bowl on the table and letting out an audible sigh of satisfaction from the full feeling he had in his gut. When Naruto looked over at Kiba, he nearly let loose a powerful laugh that would have freaked Kiba out had he done it. The look on Kiba's face was priceless, and for some reason Naruto knew he would remember it for the rest of his life. Kiba's face looked like it got smashed by the bottom side of a frying pan, then stretched out a bit. His eyes were bulging and his eyes were dilated as well. His chopsticks were halfway between him and his bowl of noodles like it got stuck there when he saw what had shocked him. He obviously hadn't eaten his food for a minute because there was no steam coming off of his ramen, which left Naruto with the idea that he had let it get cold. "Ha ha 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 ha." Naruto nearly fell out of his seat from laughing so hard. It seemed his laughing snapped Kiba out of his shock because he looked over at Naruto and asked him how any of what he had seen was possible. "I don't know, I just really love ramen." "Dude, you must have eaten 200 bowls of ramen. That should be impossible even for an Akimichi," spoke Kiba as he put his chopsticks down to look at Naruto completely. "Yeah, I know. My mom used to tell me that she wanted to run some tests on me to figure out what happened to all of the ramen I ate," spoke Naruto as he took a sip of a glass of water that was beside him. "She eventually came to the conclusion that my body rapidly converted it to energy, thus making more room for more food." Kiba nodded his head following what Naruto said slightly. "That makes sense, but I wonder why you are not bouncing off of the walls with all that energy in you," spoke Kiba as he started to slurp up some of his lukewarm noodles. "Maybe the energy that is created is converted into chakra. Chakra is energy. Therefore the energy from the noodles could be adding to my chakra reserves," spoke Naruto as he whipped his mouth. Wow, that is awesome. I bet you have a ton of chakra with all of those noodles you have eaten, spoke Kiba, as he thought about all of the chakra that Naruto probably had. With an ability to naturally turn food into chakra, Kiba assumed the Akimichi would love that. They would have all the chakra they would ever need for their chakra-heavy techniques without the need for being fat, yet still having the joy of eating nearly non-stop. No, not really. I don't feel my chakra reserves changing much after eating all of that ramen and then converting it to chakra. If anything, my chakra reserves go down a bit from having to convert all of that food into energy, which in fact takes up quite a bit of energy. Basically, I have a really high metabolism is all, spoke Naruto, enjoying the sleepy sensation he was feeling after eating a meal in midday. You sure know a lot about chakra and stuff like that, spoke Kiba, eyeing Naruto for a moment. Well, my mom is the #1 medical ninja in the world, so it isn't any surprise that she taught me a lot of stuff when I was growing up, spoke Naruto with a big cheesy grin on his face. That was when Naruto's nightmares began. A cold and sinister aura settled over the ramen stand and Naruto felt his doom moving in on him. A cold chill ran down his spine and his body began to shiver a bit. He felt like a cornered animal that knew that it had no chance for survival, but some kind of morbid curiosity took hold of him and caused him to turn his head. What he saw freaked him out. Standing behind him was his mother, Tsunade Senju, and she had an evil look on her face. She wasn't even frowning, but the look was so fake that it would have been better if she were frowning. She was smiling, but there was the black aura surrounding her. If that wasn't bad enough, standing behind her were 3 other women. Of course, 2 of them were his adoptive sisters Kushina and Shizune, but the other one was somewhat of a new face to Naruto. She was Kiba's mom if Naruto remembered correctly, and she was the only one who didn't have that sickly sweet look on her face. Her face was downright feral, and it looked like a wolf who was about to tear you a new one. Naruto couldn't help but let out a girly shriek when he saw the way his mother was looking at him. Kushina's hair was flailing around like she was the mortal version of the Nine Tails, and Shizune had this weird aura about her that reminded Naruto of a mad scientist who would love to dissect you. Naruto wasn't sure why, but he felt if he asked her why she had such an aura, she would say something like she wanted to dissect him to figure out what made him do such an idiot thing like skipping school. Tsunade began to talk, but her tone was light and kind, but held a more sinister undertone to it. Imagine my surprise when I got a message from the academy on my son's first day at school saying he went missing during the middle of a lecture. I was terrified for his safety, but then I learned that he wasn't in any danger, but had the nerve to cut class like some kind of common snot-nosed brat, spoke Tsunade, keeping to her kind but evil voice that sent shivers down Naruto's spine. By now Kiba had turned around and was witnessing the same horrors as Naruto was. He wanted to do 2 things but was too scared to do them. The first thing he wanted to do was yell at Naruto for getting him in this situation, and the second thing he wanted to do was run as far away as he possibly could to get away from his mother to avoid whatever evil punishment she obviously had in store for him. Sum growled a bit before saying, "Kiba, you are in so much trouble, I don't even have words to describe the things I am going to do to you." Her fists clenched and her tanned hands turned white from how hard she was squeezing her knuckles. But trust me, where words fail, physical sensations will prevail. Kiba whimpered a bit, knowing that whatever punishment his mother was going to give him would be very painful. He looked over at his mother's ninja dog partner Karamaru and only got an angry grow which only made him deflate more. Kiba began to stutter, not knowing what he should say at this moment. "Hey mom, what is going on?" Sum's eyes narrowed a bit and a hint of killing intent spiked from her before she looked behind Kiba and saw a man and a young girl walking towards them. Probably the owner of the store and his daughter, though she soon ignored them. "I was called to the academy to talk about you, and when I got there I found out you had skipped class. Congrats, by the way, you are now the 2nd youngest person to ever skip the academy in its history," spoke Sum with an angry growl. "When I got there I ran into Lady Tsunade, who was there along with Lady Kushina, as well as Lady Shizune for the same reason as me, though it was for Naruto over there. I hope you are proud of yourself, Naruto. You're now the youngest member to enter the academy, and then skip it," spoke Tsunade as her fists clenched a bit, causing a disturbing sound in the restaurant. "What do you have to say about this?" Naruto was in a bind, but then he said something that he probably shouldn't have. I don't know, I got hungry, so I decided to go get some ramen. I guess the part of me that is my dad started to show itself, spoke Naruto, but then gulped when that savage look entered his mother's eyes. Oh no, there is no way. But that was as far as Tsunade got before Kushina squeaked and rushed past her. To Tsunade's annoyance, she watched as Kushina started to cuddle the boy she was about to punish with the wrath only an angry mother knew. Oh, you are so sweet, Naruto-chan, spoke Kushina as she rushed forward and grabbed Naruto. She quickly picked him up and started to blabber on about this and that. I remember when your father and I used to come here and have eating competition to see who could eat the most ramen. Good times. Naruto saw Tucci in the background throwing up peace signs with a big smile on his face. He stopped when his daughter bopped him on his head though. In a moment of clairvoyance, Naruto came up with a great idea on how to save his and his new friend's hides. He looked over at Kushina, who was still talking about the time she and her brother ate so much ramen that they threw up and noodles actually came out of their noses. Hey Kushina-nichan, could you tell me about my dad? I don't really know a whole lot about him, and I am sure me and Kiba would get a real kick out of hearing some of your stories about him, spoke Naruto. Like a light switch, Kushina grabbed hold of him with one hand and then Kiba with the other before walking off with them. She had a big grin on her face as she began to tell them about this and that or other things that she and her brother had done. Kushina, Naruto, and Kiba eventually were out of sight, but the rest were looking a bit owlishly at what had just happened. After the shock wore off, everyone was thinking the same thing. That sneaky brat. They realized Naruto had used Kushina's brother as a way to get him and his friend away from their angry parents. This meant they had time to cool down, and their punishment would be reduced greatly. That little brat using Kushina as a scapegoat, grumbled Tsunade as she sat down at the bar and let out a sigh. When he gets home, I am going to give him a long talking to and straighten him out. My granduncle Tobarama Senju didn't have the academy created to have Senju making a mockery of it. Yes, but you have to admit it was genius. The boy used what he had on hand and his quick wits to get away from a dangerous situation. That is a good skill to have when you're a ninja, spoke Shizune, as she sat down on one of the stools next to her teacher. Yeah, and he was clever enough to escape with my son as well. That boy has a lot of potential as a shinobi, I will give him that, spoke Tsum as she looked behind her and saw a glass of water. She grabbed it and smelled the rim of the glass. Detecting it was her son's scent and not some stranger, she felt it was okay to drink and did. I wonder how strong he is. Tsum took a quick glance towards Shizune and Tsunade, who both avoided her gaze. But their reactions said much even if they didn't. Yeah, I guess you're right, spoke Tsunade as she let off a deep sigh. I guess I could let him off this one time. I haven't ever had a problem with Naruto before, though he was always a free spirit, so I shouldn't come down so hard on him for his first offense. I don't know, Lady Tsunade. Naruto is almost always doing something, so for him to have to sit down all day in a classroom listening to someone lecture could be really hard for him. I suspect this may become a continuous thing, spoke Shizune, giving her own insight. I only hope that nobody gets angry with him over it, though I am sure they won't do anything drastic. Could you imagine how embarrassed I would be if Naruto was held back because he missed too many days at the academy? I know right now I am not going to let that happen, even if I have to tie him to his desk with ninja wire, spoke Tsunade, as she fist-pumped the air with a determined look on her face. Kiba is a wild one as well, so I hope he doesn't get Naruto into any trouble either, spoke Tsum as she took another sip of Kiba's water. He needs to grow up quick though, or all of the ninja dogs will reject him, feeling he is an unworthy master. Tsunade seemed to ponder what Tsum said for a minute before saying, while I like it when Naruto acts serious when it is important, I don't want him growing up too quickly. He is my little baby boy, and I want to keep him with me for a bit longer. Tsunade had a serene look on her face after she said this. Tsum nodded her head a bit. Yeah. But maybe all of that idiotic behavior could be toned down a bit, spoke Tsum before she let loose a chuckle that both Tsunade and Shizune joined in on. Well, it has been fun talking to you, Lady Tsum, but Shizune and I have to go. If you want, Kiba can stay with us for the night. It will be Naruto's first sleep over, spoke Tsunade, causing Tsum to smile. Alright, sounds good. But none of that lady stuff. You can just call me Tsum, spoke Tsum as she shook Tsunade's hand. Same here, spoke Tsunade. She went to walk away, but then someone tapped on her shoulders. When she turned around, she saw the ramen stand man handing her a piece of paper with a giant number on it that she had no idea what it was for. "What is this?" "That is the bill your son ran up when he ate through almost all of my ramen while he was here," spoke Tucci with a kind smile. He wasn't ready for the fit Tsunade pulled next. "What? That little glutton ate that much ramen in one sit-in? I am going to get him so good when I get home," shouted Tsunade as she ran off like a maniac. Shizun paid for the meal with a ticket that would bill the Senju clan directly before leaving to chase after her master. Sum and Kuramaru just laughed or barked after watching such a comical display. Uzumaki and Senju Chapter 4. The Hidden Leaf Village was a lush village with plenty of everything. Its people were kind, the food was great, and the history was something that you could read for hours and never get bored. Some visitors never wanted to leave, while others traded with the village just to come see it again. One of the best features of the village was the immense forest that surrounded it. It was nature's way of providing for the Hidden Leaf Village. It produced rare plants that were sold in raw form or as finished products like salves and medicines for sick people all over the elemental nations. There were large varieties of creatures that lived in the forest as well. Some of them were rare and were hunted for their furs or other products, though this was highly regulated to make sure the species did not go extinct. There were also creatures such as deer and cow that lived in the lowlands that were killed and sold for their meats as well. Of course, the Hidden Leaf Village sold lumber, but this was also highly regulated as well. They couldn't go chopping down all of their protection, else they leave themselves open for attack. Plus, the name of their village would run hollow if the forest around them was chopped down. If that had happened, it would no longer have any leaves, nor would it be hidden. Many had thought that with the first Hokages with style ninjutsu, the village would be able to become self-sufficient by growing and selling trees as building materials, or selling flowers and seeds for various other purposes. These people had been highly disappointed when the first Hokage's children showed no aptitude for their father's Kekkei Genkai, leaving the village to find other ways to produce money outside of their ninja jobs. The forest around the Hidden Leaf Village was one of the reasons that Konoha was as strong as it was. It produced more goods, therefore it didn't need to buy as much, and because they regulated everything so well, the forest which gave them their resources continued to give them more and more. Places like the village hidden in the stones only had rocks that they had to mine if they wanted some extra cash, and those resources were not self-replenishing. They were also known for turning raw materials that they mined into goods as well, making things like steel, iron, gears, jewelry, and anything else they mined up and could sell for a profit. The village hidden in the sand was a really good example of this. Because sand was really the only thing that was around their village, they were not able to gather materials to sell or manipulate. If it were not for the third Kazekage and his clan's magnet release bloodline limit, which they used to pull metals out of the shifting sands, the village would probably have imploded on itself from lack of money and supplies. Some villages did have plenty of products to use, alter, and sell, such as the village hidden in the mist. They lived where not only they could sell lumber, but also find exotic plants that were nearly impossible to find anywhere else. They were well known for the unique poisons they made out of the exotic fauna around their village. It was too bad that their village had always been so unstable, as they could have come too close to Konoha or Kumo's power. Because of the need and value the forest had to the village hidden in the leaves, young children were taught to respect the forest and how to identify the unique species of plants that it produced. It was a good way to educate the children, and it taught them important lessons about their village. If children wanted to make some extra money on the side, they were allowed to pick some of the less exotic plants that grew in bulk without being watched over by the FPCD, which was short for the Forest Protection and Conservation Department. It was the department which regulated the amount of influence the villagers had on the forest. Because of this, shop owners were kind enough to give children a good deal if they picked these plants for them. It was usually inexpensive this way, and since it paid by amount, children usually had a good incentive to work harder, thus teaching them another lesson, although in a more passive sort of way. This was the reason that Naruto had been dragged into a nearby forest by his friend Kiba in the early morning. Apparently Kiba wanted to buy some kind of new toy or something like that, and since he knew that his mother wouldn't buy it for him, she wanted him to focus a lot more on training, he decided to work for it by picking burdock. Burdock was a very common plant in the land of fire, and it was also very effective for curing skin diseases, such as eczema and acne. As one could guess, it was very popular and highly in demand from teens that had issues with that phase everyone went through. Burdock was actually a rather useful plant, as Naruto already knew from all his work he did with his mother. She had taught him how to make salves that would increase the boy's natural healing rate for a moment, salves that took the sting out of burns, and many other salves that made use of the burdock plant. Naruto was cursing his friend from taking him out of his clan's clan house in the village so early in the morning. It wasn't that Naruto didn't usually wake up early. It was just that Naruto had trained himself pretty good the other night, and it had left him quite tired. He cursed Kiba and his bad timing. Kiba was his exuberant self as always, which was surprising since Naruto would never have taken Kiba for an early bird. It didn't make the fact that Naruto still wanted to sleep any better though. Naruto's head would bobble back and forth on his head as he moved through the forest, but his mind could never wander off to dreamland with Kiba's incisive talking. Naruto wished his mother had been home when Kiba had come to get him, but sadly she wasn't. She had gone to the land of salt to help with miners' problems that had sprung up. Naruto remembered her talking about how idiots shouldn't apply salt to everything that they ate and she wouldn't have to leave her baby or something like that. It wasn't new for Naruto's mother to leave the house and go do whatever it was that she needed to do on the village's behalf. She had done so many times while Naruto was growing up, though she was never gone for more than 3 or 4 days and never went on another mission for at least 2 weeks. What Naruto wasn't used to was being alone. He had always had someone, be it Shizune, Kushina, or his mother there at home waiting on him, teaching him something new, or just playing with him whenever the mood struck him. At the moment his house was empty, and if he was honest he didn't like it in the least. His self-proclaimed sister Shizune had been sent on a mission with an ANBU team as the unit's medical ninja. Medical ninja were not on every unit, even though Naruto's mother believed that they should be, but for ninja like ANBU they were usually taken along in case the worst may happen. After all, the ANBU were known for delivering important information, and if one of them fell they would need someone to heal them so that they could complete their mission. His other self-proclaimed sister Kushina was also out with the ANBU as well, though in her case she was actually leading the ANBU team. Her skills were some of the best in the village, and even though she loved playing and hanging out with Naruto she was still a ninja, so she still had to perform her ninja duties. Naruto didn't know where Kushina was, but she had promised him that wherever she was going, for whatever reason, she would come back to him alive. Naruto wasn't a worrywart like some people, namely his mother, but he wasn't immune to worrying. He hated the thought of losing someone close to him and never wanted to experience the pain of loss. It hurt him to think about the father that he never even met. He couldn't imagine what it would be like to lose someone that he was close to. At the moment Naruto's house was empty, and it would be for the next few days at least, so Naruto would just have to get over his loneliness if he wanted to keep up his upbeat attitude. But still he thought about how hollow his house felt when he woke up and Shizune was cooking them all breakfast with his mother and Kushina trying to help but only making things 10 times worse. "Hey man, you alright?" Naruto's attention snapped back to reality as he looked forward and saw the curious look on Kiba's face as he stared at him. Naruto looked around and realized that they were still in the forest. Kiba had one of those braided baskets on his back full of burdock, and Naruto could tell that the one on his back had gotten heavier while he was still caught up in thought. "Yeah, sorry, I was thinking about some stuff," spoke Naruto, as he let out an audible yawn that he tried to cover up with his hand, but it was pointless in the end. He was still tired from being up so early, and he hadn't even eaten anything yet. Kiba was wearing his civilian clothes as they were dubbed by most in the village. Civilian clothing was basically what people wore that served no real purpose other than fashion, or just was not applicable in the ninja world. Kiba wasn't wearing his mesh armor under his white shirt, and his pouch that held all of his ninja supplies was nowhere to be seen. He didn't have on any bandages, and Naruto was sure that his one-latch sandals were not made for silent movement. It became even more apparent when the shirt that Kiba was wearing had the symbol for band on the front of it. Yeah, real subtle. Naruto couldn't talk much either though, given that he too was wearing basically all civilian clothing with an exception or two. He was wearing an ordinary black shirt, though there was mesh armor underneath it, and regular dark green cargo pants. He didn't own any of those comfort sandals like Kiba had on, but he did own some that were made for medical ninja who were just going to be walking around the hospital, which he was now wearing. Around his neck was his great-grandfather's blue necklace that had always been cool to the touch. "What has got you so messed up that you're spacing out while we are sneaking around possibly hostile territory?" spoke Kiba as he looked about all dramatically. It made Naruto sigh, though his smile was still evident on his face as he watched Kiba move about acting like he was some kind of super cool ninja. "I would have left you behind if we were in enemy territory," spoke Naruto in such a casual tone as he walked off from Kiba that it had made Kiba do a double take. His face was priceless, but Naruto couldn't laugh or else the joke would have ended way too soon. "Hey you jerk, that's messed up," shouted Kiba as he ran after Naruto. The entire time he ran, his sandals smacked the bottom of his feet, repeatedly causing popping noises that echo throughout the forest. "You couldn't leave your friend behind enemy lines. That goes against Konoha's policy. Dying goes against my natural instincts, so I guess they will just have to understand," spoke Naruto as he looked around. In the distance, he saw a plant growing up behind a large bush with some spiky-looking leaves on it. "You jerk. When I become a great and powerful ninja, you are going to wish that you hadn't said that," spoke Kiba with a pout on his face. His arms were crossed and his lips were poked out in a cute-to-a-woman kind of way. Naruto thought that the only thing he was missing was a small puppy on his shoulder with those big droopy eyes that they had to complete the image. "Ha! You a great ninja, please," spoke Naruto in a sarcastic tone that had no real negativity in it. Naruto leaned over and picked the plant that had been growing behind the bush and smiled, seeing that it was the plant that they were walking around collecting. Kiba went on a bit more of a rant, calling Naruto childish names while Naruto made childish jokes about Kiba and Sun and so forth. The Hokage Tower had been made by the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, right after the treaty between the Uchiha and the Senju had been finalized. It stood as a pillar of justice and pride for their village, as it had been the place that Kage after Kage had sat down to do business that had affected the village in countless ways. Currently, the third Hokage was the one occupying the seat in the Hokage Tower, but he was not the latest Hokage. The fourth Hokage had come and gone far too quickly in many people's opinion. It was sad to finally find someone capable to take the mantle of Hokage from him, only to see him die not a year later. The third Hokage was tired, in all honesty. He had been Hokage for what felt like an eternity, and although he loved protecting the people of the Hidden Leaf Village, being Hokage really did take a number out of him. He had seen so much as both a Hokage and as a shinobi that all he wanted to do was rest. He had been Hokage through the end of the Second Shinobi World War and the entire part of the Third Shinobi World War. He had seen men dying in the most brutal fashion, and had also the unpleasant duty to be the one who sent men to their deaths. It was a job that would have crushed lesser men, but not him. No, Hiruzen Sarutobi was not a quitter, and thanks to his efforts not only has Konoha prospered, but his name would always be remembered through time. It was a great feeling, but like all things it had to come to an end. Currently the Hokage was sitting at his desk puffing on his pipe that he had gotten from his late wife before she had passed away. He missed her greatly, but when he smoked tobacco that had been grown by his clan, the Sarutobi clan, out of the pipe that his late wife had made for him, Hiruzen somehow felt at ease. The tobacco that the Sarutobi clan grew and cultivated was also a highly sought-after product that helped pay for Konoha's bills. It was a special tobacco that the Sarutobi clan had created themselves that did not have the adverse effects of things like lung cancer that other tobaccos had, and for this reason the Sarutobi clan had to watch out for thieves who would try and steal their seeds to make their own products. Like the Sarutobi clan, all of the clans and ninja of the Leaf did their part to support Konoha. The low-level ninja did missions around the village to keep it in the best shape that they could, even if they hated it. The various clans made and sold things, or performed specific actions that brought them and the village much more income. The Jonin and Chunin paid a small percentage of their paycheck to the village, all in order to keep Konoha in top condition. These implements had been created by the second Hokage as he felt the shinobi lifestyle would one day grow too much for commoners like civilians to live around, and thus came up with these ideas to allow Konoha to be self-sufficient in case the civilians left. It was a wise move, but so far the civilians seemed happy and content with no sign of a mass exodus in sight. For some reason, the Hokage had been feeling antsy. It was like he was waiting for something to happen, but he had no idea what it was he was waiting for. He knew that it was pointless to think about it, since no human could look into the future and predict future events, no matter how much the Uchiha and Hyuga said otherwise, but still it felt like something that his attention should be on. He hadn't felt like this since the beginnings of the Third Shinobi World War, and that was what worried him the most. The thought that another war would break out and force the happy and content people of his village to start rationing supplies and kissing loved ones before they left for a battlefield somewhere was horrifying, but not something he had the power to stop. As the Hokage mused to himself, he heard a low humming sound. At first it was faint, but gradually it continued to grow and grow like a bee that had started flying directly towards your ear. You could hear its wings fluttering a bit at a distance, but when it was right next to your ear it sounded like someone was rapidly beating on a Congo drum. "What is that sound?" spoke the Hokage as he put his pipe down and started to look around his office. He noticed that the ANBU were looking at him oddly, but he ignored them and continued to search his office. At first he feared it was a sneak attack, possibly an assassination attempt, but after a few seconds he realized it wasn't, so he continued. "Lord Hokage, do you need help looking for something?" asked a rat-masked ANBU ninja from the shadows. He had been watching the Hokage and felt that it might be possible the old man was losing his mind. "If you dropped something, then I would happily get it for you." The Hokage looked over at the rat-masked ANBU and shook his head. "No, rat, it isn't that I dropped something, but I just keep hearing this incessant humming sound, and it seems like it is getting louder," spoke the Hokage. "I was just curious as to what it was." Another ANBU began to speak. This time it was a frog-masked ANBU. "I don't hear anything, Hokage-sama. Are you sure you are not lightheaded?" spoke the frog ANBU, knowing how the Hokage loved to puff his pipe. "You were smoking quite a bit of tobacco earlier." The Hokage had the decency to blush, knowing that it was true, but he was sure that his hearing wasn't going out. He had some of the best hearing in the village, so just a bit of smoke shouldn't be enough to mess that up. "No, frog, I am sure that there is a humming sound," spoke the Hokage as he sat back down. He was starting to get anxious, not knowing what that sound was, but took a few deep breaths to calm his nerves. "I think I hear it now too," spoke the rat-masked ANBU as he started to move his head back and forth. "What could be making such a noise that we can't find it?" "Maybe because it is not in the office, but outside," spoke the frog-masked ANBU as he pointed out of the window. "I think we may be in trouble, Hokage-sama." The Hokage raised an eyebrow when he heard his ANBU say that, but when he turned around his face went white as the blood left it. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, and even did a double take, hoping that he had been hallucinating. Up in the sky was dozens of flying devices that looked like humans were connected to the bottom of them. There were some larger ones, but there were only 2 of them out of all the flying devices. The worst part of all of it was the forehead protectors that were on the shinobi's heads that were flying around. "Damn, it is the land of skies ninja," spoke the Hokage as he stood up and got closer to the large window at the back of the Hokage's office. He placed his hands on the wooden railings and gripped them harshly, causing his knuckles to go white, and the wood to squeak and groan under the Hokage's powerful grip. Not many shinobi remembered the ninja of the Land of Sky. It had been a short war in which the second Hokage easily won when a new nation and its shinobi threatened the power of the 5 great nations and attempted to conquer the world. They had believed themselves superiors to all others, and soon were proven how wrong they were. They had attacked the Land of Fire thinking that it would be their first conquest, but were stopped on the nation's border. It was an embarrassing defeat on the Sky Ninja's part, for they quickly lost not only the power source of their flying village, but also many of them were put to the sword for trying to invade the Land of Fire. Only a few hands full of Sky Ninja had been able to escape alongside their royalty, someone called the Sky Emperor, though where they had gone or what they did afterwards was a mystery. The third had just assumed they had broken up into smaller groups or had settled down to become regular Joes, but it seemed he had been wrong. "ANBU, put the village on high alert. Code 3, shouted the Hokage as he jumped out of the window to begin organizing his shinobi for a counterattack. He knew that they wouldn't be able to stop the Sky Ninja from attacking, but he was sure that they would be able to prevent any more damage than necessary from being brought upon the village. "Yes, sir," shouted the frog-masked ANBU as he jumped out of another window flagged by 2 of ANBU as he raced across the rooftops towards the ANBU headquarters. The other ANBU who had been in the Hokage's office ran to the top of the tower. When he got to the top, he entered what was known as a command center and started to shuffle through all of the buttons and levers that were inside of the room. Honestly, there was a button for everything in that room, but soon he found the lever for emergencies. There were over 100 emergency levers, and all of them were for something completely different. One of them was for if the village had caught fire and was to alert everyone to either help prevent the fire from continuing or to get the hell out of the way. Others were for natural disasters such as earthquakes, tornadoes, etc. It was only when he started looking at the bottom levers did he realize the one he was looking for. At the bottom, there were 4 levers, all 4 in case they were invaded. Code 1 was if enemy ninja had broken into the village. Code 2 was for if a large group of shinobi or one powerful S-rank shinobi broke into the leaf. Code 3 was for when they were invaded by an enemy army, and Code 4 was for if they were invaded by multiple enemy armies. The ANBU ninja was thanking the gods that he didn't have to pull lever 4 and quickly grabbed hold of lever 3. With a hard push and some pulling, he was able to push the stiff lever over to the other side, causing the words Code 3 to go from a soothing green color to an eerie red color. Instantly, a loud alarm started to go off, all thought the village, causing villagers and shinobi alike to look towards the Hokage's tower. The shinobi knew what that alarm meant, and soon they were beginning to order civilians to head for safety, and that genin should make sure that they all got there safely. The chunin helped the genin, and the jonin went to find the Hokage. Up in the skies over the village, hidden in the leaves, was a large group of shinobi flying on machines that allowed them great mobility in the air, though not good enough to use ninjutsu. They had already compensated for this, though, with what they like to call kunai guns. It was sad for a shinobi to use, but they did what they felt they had to do. One of the leaders of the attack looked out towards the Leaf Village and saw many of the shinobi jumping around with the civilians who looked like ants from so high above scrambling around. He instantly knew that they had been spotted, and even if he hadn't seen what he had seen, that alarm would have given them away anyways. "This is Blue Team to Squad 5, to you copy," overspoke the commander into his headpiece as he and his men flew closer and closer to the hidden Leaf Village. "This is Squad 5, we read you loud and clear, what is your status?" overspoke the man on the other end. He was the head of the intel unit back on the carrier, and also one of the men who gave the general's commands. "The hidden Leaf Village seems to have spotted us. We believe that they will attempt a counterattack, but do not believe that they will have time to set up effective measurements to defend themselves. Requesting a decision on what we should do," overspoke the commander as he and his men continued to get closer and closer to the hidden Leaf Village. He felt like a bird of prey closing in on his prey. There was some static for a moment, but then Squad 5 came back online. "I just spoke with the general. He wants you to do a quick sweep while dropping as many paper bombs as possible before circling back around to use the kunai guns," overspoke Squad 5. "Roger, that will proceed with the bombing," overspoke the leader. "Blue Team, listen up. We are going to attack them fast and hard, giving them no way to defend themselves, then circle back around to pick off the stragglers," overspoke the captain as he grabbed his kunai gun and did a dive bomb maneuver towards the hidden Leaf Village. "Yes, sir," overshouted his men, and they followed his example and dive-bombed down towards the village hidden in the leaves with evil intents in their hearts. Naruto and Kiba were still walking around the forest looking for more sellable plants. They had been out all day, and honestly Naruto was starting to get bored. It wasn't that he didn't like nature, he loved it. In fact, it was just picking the same plant again and again for hours without stopping was not his cup of tea. He had tried to get Kiba to show him the puppies that his clan raised and looked after, but Kiba had refused with a huff. Naruto had been curious as to why his friend didn't want to go play with the puppies, but soon found out that Kiba was really trying to avoid his family at the moment. Kiba had went on a long spill about his mom was always hounding him to train more, to practice his jutsu more often, to try and heighten his senses, which Naruto thought sounded fun, but Kiba didn't. He seemed to be tired of his mom trying to cram training down his throat, and had begun to rebel against doing it recently. Kiba was also trying to avoid his sister since to him she was a major pain in the butt. Apparently his sister liked to tease him all the time, and enjoyed messing with him, something that Naruto didn't understand because he didn't have siblings, but in the end, after hearing about how Kiba and his sister Hana were always at odds with each other, he was kind of happy to be an only child. As they walked through the forest, Naruto felt a shiver run up his spine. He looked up towards the sky and saw small black dots flying over the village with two larger black dots close by. At first Naruto thought they were birds, but that feeling came over him again and he decided to rethink that idea a bit. "Hey Kiba, what are those things?" spoke Naruto, as he pointed up towards the black dots in the sky. Kiba turned around and looked up at the sky for a moment as well, but it seemed even he couldn't make heads or tails of them. "I don't know, maybe some weird birds that like to fly high in the sky," rhymed Kiba, but then there was a large explosion that rocked the ground that they were standing on. When they both looked back towards the village, they saw a single cloud of smoke rising up from the far side of the village. "I don't think those are birds," spoke Naruto as he continued to look up at the sky. Like an avalanche, all of the other black dots seemed to start falling from the sky at great speeds, and the lower they got the better Naruto was able to make them out. "Dude, you're being paranoid," spoke Kiba, though there was fear in his eyes. "I am sure that there isn't anyone who is stupid enough to attack the leaf in broad daylight. I mean, it would be suicidal." But unfortunately Kiba had been wrong, and explosion after explosion rocked the village, causing shouts of pain and surprise to rise from the village. Black clouds of smoke continued to rise from the village and more explosions continued to go off. "I think the leaf is being attacked," shouted Naruto with worry and shock written all over his face. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to do and just stood there for a moment trying to let his mind catch up with him. "We have to hide," shouted Kiba as he tried to grab Naruto, but to his surprise Naruto pulled his hand away from his own. Kiba was shocked, but when he saw the strange look on Naruto's face, he knew he was going to regret whatever his friend was about to say. "I can't go and hide," spoke Naruto as he took the sack he had been using to carry the burdock plants inside of and handed them to Kiba. "I made an oath and I am going to stick to it." "Dude, are you crazy? Look at that, we would die if we ran into a place like that," shouted Kiba, trying to jar some sense into his friend. "Beside, what are you talking about? What oath are you talking about? And why did you take it?" "I am a medic and I took an oath that I would always do my best to ensure the health and life of my people. I cannot abandon them," spoke Naruto, though it was clear he was scared. "Kiba, take my bag and hide in the woods until the fighting is over. I will go help the leaf in the meantime." Kiba tried to stop his friend again, but Naruto was already gone, only leaving behind a few leaves. Kiba cursed himself for being so weak and not being able to help, but he knew that there was nothing he could do about it now, so he grabbed his friend's bag and ran into the forest to wait out the battle. Tsunade had been having a terrible time in the land of salt. The people there had brains as hard as the rocks they mined, and their food was terrible as well. On top of all that, the men were idiots and were not above checking her out every opportunity they got. She got so mad that she wanted to throttle them, but didn't unless they tried something, then she would hurt them good. The food tasted like it was literally made out of salt, and they just figured out how to color it to make it look like some other kind of food. She was grateful for what little skills she had been able to gain while raising Naruto, so she would have either starved to death or had a seizure from salt overdose. She had previously believed that she would only need to stay in the land of salt for a few days in order to teach the people there the harms of eating too much salt. The problem was she had not counted on them being all as dumb as rocks. So without Shizune, who usually dealt with the idiots, Tsunade was forced to stay longer to drive her point across. She had been missing her little Naruchan since the moment she left the village, and was only getting angrier and angrier the longer she had to stay away from him. She wasn't an idiot. She knew that her feelings were a bit much, even for a mother, but she didn't care. So long as she had her little Naruchan, she knew that she would be happy. She was happy and unhappy about Naruto's situation at the moment. She hadn't been happy thinking about her son being all alone with Kushina and Shizune, who knew what they may do while she was away, but when she learned that they were not going to be in the village while she was gone had made her a bit happier. The part that made her unhappy was that Naruto was going to be alone. She knew for a fact that Naruto had never been alone for more than a few hours, not counting when he was sleeping, so she feared what may happen to him while she was away. There was of course the wild delusion that he may be crying all alone, asking himself why she wasn't there to comfort him, which had almost caused her to drop what she was doing and run towards the village to comfort her baby. But she realized that Naruto was growing up, and she couldn't smother him forever, no matter how much she wanted to. There was of course the more likely, and less creepy, thought that Naruto was alone and unprotected. She knew that being the last Senju, and possibly reviving the Senju clan, had put a great deal of risk in Naruto's future. She hated it, but it was a fact, so he would have to learn to live with it in life. She hated the idea that he could be kidnapped while she was away. The thought had her hands shaking and her heart racing everything she thought about it. The things that they would do to him were horrible, as not only would they use him for breeding material, but it was highly possible they may also treat him inhumanly, something that also broke her heart to think about. She was able to get over this though by focusing on her work and telling herself that it wouldn't happen. Naruto was a big boy now, he was living inside of the most powerful ninja village in the world, and she was positive that Hiruzen had placed Anbu to watch over Naruto while she was away. To relax and get her mind off of such negative thoughts, she had gone to a local casino. Of course she had given up gambling, but at the moment her nerves were so bad that she needed something to do in order to not freak out. Her heart dropped when the moment she pulled the lever she got all sevens and coins started to pour out of the machine like water. She knew that with her luck this shouldn't be possible, so that could only mean tragedy was nearby. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner," shouted the owner of the casino as he pointed towards Tsunade. All of the people in the casino started to clap for her, but they were shocked when Tsunade stood up and bolted out of the casino. The people were looking around trying to figure out what had happened, before they looked down at the coins, wondering to themselves if they could take them without getting into some kind of trouble. After a moment the tension broke and everyone jumped forward trying to get all of the coins for themselves. Tsunade ran so fast and hard that she was leaving considerable impact marks on the ground with every step she took. To civilians she was moving so fast that the eye could not even see, yet she was moving with all of the ferocity and power of a runaway freight train. "Please, Naruto-chan. Please be okay," thought Tsunade as she ran off towards the Hidden Leaf Village with speed that few ninja had ever obtained in their lifetimes. When Naruto arrived inside the Hidden Leaf Village, the destruction and utter chaos nearly overwhelmed him. Had it not been for his medical training, and his work he had done in the hospital with his mother, he was sure he would have frozen up or possibly even thrown up. There were people lying all over the streets holding various limps in pain, or were not even moving at all. The stench of burning flesh hung in the air along with the scent of metallic blood so thick it was enough to choke someone. Naruto had never thought a battlefield would be something like this. Sure, he had expected people to get hurt, even some to die, but not on this scale. He knew that battles on this scale were not very common, but still the thought still wasn't very comforting to Naruto. As Naruto gazed out at all of the wounded with the sounds of explosions, screams, and metal hitting metal ringing in the air, he all of a sudden felt overwhelmed. He didn't know where to start. He didn't know what to do. He was at a loss of both words and thought. It wasn't until a young girl caught his eye as she tried to push a burnt log off of an old woman that Naruto's mind and body seemed to come to. Naruto moved almost without conscience thought over to the little girl and easily picked the large burnt piece of wood off of the old woman and looked down at her. The little girl looked scared and tears were flowing from her eyes. But what shocked Naruto the most was when he saw the little girl smile down at the old woman. Naruto noticed that the old woman's eyes were slowly starting to open and her hand had reached out and cupped the girl's cheek. There, Katsuki, grandma is okay," spoke the old woman in a weak voice as she held her granddaughter like she as a priceless piece of art. "Everything is going to be fine. Grandma, I can't lose you," shouted the little girl as she held onto her grandmother's hand. "Mom died, then father, then grandpa, but I was content because I still had you. Please don't leave me," shouted the little girl. The old woman went to say something, but Naruto cut her off. "This isn't goodbye." That was all Naruto had said, but it caused both the little girl and the old woman to look over at him in shock. The little girl had hope in her eyes, but the old woman didn't seem so convinced. "Can you help her? Please, you have to do something," spoke the little girl as she held on to Naruto's shirt. "It is okay. I will help her," spoke Naruto as he brought up his slightly shaken hands and began to channel chakra into them. Both the grandmother and granddaughter were amazed when they saw Naruto's hands start to glow a light green color before Naruto began to check over the old woman. This isn't good. She has multiple broken bones that are pushing in on some of her organs and damaging others. If I stay here, I might be able to save her. But if I do that, then I won't be able to help anyone else, thought Naruto. It was a horrible feeling that Naruto had never even fathomed was possible. The thought that he had the power to save lives, but he was still unable to, was horrifying. The old lady let out a low sigh that sounded something like relief. It made the young girl smile and Naruto as well, but even as Naruto worked on the old woman, he could see people in the streets slowly dying from various injuries that he knew he could heal, but he just needed more time. Naruto had heard that time was the only thing we could never get more of, nor could we get it back once it was gone. It wasn't a thought that had ever rung much with Naruto until today. Now he realized the truth behind those words, and it truly saddened him. I need to think, if I don't do something they will die, thought Naruto as he continued to rack his brain for something. Anything that would allow him the ability to get to more people. Wait a second, if I had more hands then I could save more people, and the only way I know how to get more hands besides backup is and then it hit him like a sack of bricks. There was only one jutsu that he knew of that would be able to help him at the moment. He had only learned it because he didn't know how to use any elemental ninjutsu, and the regular clone technique was highly ineffective. His mother had felt he needed something more than the clone jutsu in case he ever got himself into a sticky situation and needed to escape a stronger opponent. Naruto wanted to laugh, but knew it would be seen as highly inappropriate at the moment. Naruto was sure that his mother had never planned on him using that jutsu for the purpose he was about to use it for. Made him wonder what else he could use it for. The old lady and the little girl looked at Naruto in confusion when he pulled his hands away from the old lady and cut off the green chakra to his hands. The little girl thought that Naruto was about to tell her that her grandmother wasn't going to make it, and tears started to form in her eyes. The old lady seemed to accept her fate and closed her eyes with a saddened look as she held her granddaughter's hand. Multi-shadow clone jutsu was all they heard as they gazed up at the young man who had tried to come to their rescue. He had his hands in a weird hand sign and he was releasing so much chakra that even they could see it. Naruto didn't know if this would work, but if it did, he wanted it to work to its max. So he drew upon his large reserve of powerful chakra and started to mold it into his granduncle's original jutsu. Instantly, a large cloud of smoke covered him, the old woman and her granddaughter, as well as a few blocks of the neighborhood. When Naruto opened up his eyes, he grinned, and so did all of the clones of himself as well. Looking around, Naruto saw hundreds of himself looking back down at him. Naruto was getting excited and felt his Senju and Uzumaki blood boiling for actions. With a loud and clear voice, Naruto shouted, "Do your medical duties and serve your village well." That was the only order they needed, and soon all of his clone jumped down into the streets or ran across the rooftops to other areas of the village. After he was done ordering his clones around, Naruto knelt back down beside the old lady and her granddaughter who were looking at him with gobsmacked expressions on their faces. Naruto just smiled and began to reapply medical chakra to the old lady's body. Hiruzen hated to admit it, but the flying ninja really were a pain to deal with. There were so many of them, and only certain long-range jutsu, or thrown weapons, really worked against them. Of course, genjutsu worked as well, but like always it was a more situational useful thing, not an overall useful thing. He had been trying to get his men in order while stopping as many of the enemy's attacks as he could. The enemies thankfully were not able to use ninjutsu from their flying devices, or else they would have been in much more trouble. He wished now more than ever that Tsunade, Shizune, and Kushina were in the village. He knew he was going to get an earful from Tsunade for letting enemy ninja attack the village while Naruto was there. And if the boy was hurt, he feared not only for his life, but everyone's lives that she crossed. The medical unit, he was thankful to say, was doing a wonderful job, and on top of that, the hospital hadn't been hit by any of the bombs, so that was a big plus. He would have to thank Tsunade and Shizune for getting the medical ninja of his village into top shape, as he was sure they were the difference between life and death for many of his shinobi and civilians. Currently, he had 5 main units that were defending the village, attacking their enemies, and coordinating their allies. Kakashi's team was in the northern sector of the residential area, Might Guy was in the Southern District doing the same, while two of his elite ANBU were doing the same in the business and academy sector of the village. He himself was guarding the brain of the village, being the place where all the decisions were made, as it was going to be needed greatly after this battle. His current skill was not only reminding people why he was called the Professor, but also why he was Hokage. Utilizing his vast knowledge of jutsu, he was able to take out a large portion of the flying enemies on his own, and it had even forced them to rethink their attack. Now there wasn't anyone attacking his area, so the Hokage had sent many of his troops to back up his other commanders. "Hokage-sama," spoke one of the ANBU as he appeared beside the Hokage. The Hokage looked over at him with a serious look on his face that made the ANBU shake for a moment before correcting himself. "I have news that you need to know." "Report," was all that the Hokage said as he gazed up towards the few remaining sky ninja. Many of them had been whipped out in the hour-long struggle to defend the village, and soon after they had gotten their acts together they had been able to put up an amazing counterattack for their enemies. "All of the civilians who had been harmed in Sector B are reported for, and have all been healed, my lord," spoke the ANBU, though he was amazed at how quickly the stern look on the Hokage's face changed to a look of shock. How in the world could all of the villagers in an entire sector be healed and taken care of? There are only 5 sectors in Konoha, not including the areas in which the ANBU headquarters is located, as well as the Hokage Tower, hospital, and academy, thought the Hokage. "How is this possible?" asked the Hokage as he turned around to look at the ANBU fully. "I thought most of the medical ninja were in the hospital or were healing the injured shinobi in hot zones." "They were, my lord, but it seems that one person didn't get this information and only healed those who he saw," spoke the ANBU still in his kneeling position. This caught Hiruzen by surprise. The only person he believed could do something like that would be his old student Tsunade, but she wasn't in the village. Either some natural genius had somehow appeared from thin air, or someone had really been holding back on their skills. Another thought that was running through his mind was what to do about said medical ninja. It wasn't that what they had done was wrong, but not doing as ordered was literally a crime when given by a commanding officer, especially during a time of need, unless the command was against the laws in the first place. While what the medical ninja done was nothing short of amazing, it also conflicted with his direct orders. "What is the name of the medical ninja? Is he or she a part of the emergency unit at the hospital, or is the medical ninja a field medic from an ANBU squad?" asked the Hokage, truly interested in this newest development. "Neither, my lord. Technically, he is a civilian," spoke the ANBU, knowing that this would shock the Hokage more than anything he had said before. It was true. The Hokage's eyes nearly became the size of dinner plates when he heard this, but then a cold sweat started to run down his neck. He wasn't sure if what he was thinking was correct, but if it was, he knew he was screwed. "What is the name of this technical civilian?" spoke the Hokage. "It is Lady Tsunade's son, Naruto Senju," spoke the ANBU, right before he saw the look of fear in the Hokage's eyes. Shit, was all Hiruzen could say in his mind as he thought about how much worse and better his day had become all at the same time. As Naruto and his clones healed the injured, a lone sky ninja had flown down low and unleashed a barrage of kunai at them, only to come face to face with Naruto Senju's fist, which had way more power than the sky ninja would have ever guessed. The power was so great, in fact, that it had sent him through one side of a house and out the other. "And stay down," spoke Naruto as he pumped his arm with pride. He was tired, which was odd given the only time he ever really got tired was after an intense day of training with his mom and sisters. Though with the massive shadow clone technique and the continuous usage of the mystical palm technique, it really shouldn't have been that surprising. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw something. Squinting his eyes, he didn't like what he saw, but before he could do or say anything, someone screamed behind him. Thinking there was another injured person, he may have missed her, turned around, but was surprised to see a red-headed girl hiding from another barrage of kunai. If he didn't know any better, he would have thought he was looking at a young Kushina. But this girl's hair was a bit darker, her skin had a fair tan as well, and she kinda dressed like a boy. Still, she had to be around the same age as him, give or take a year possibly. Still, he had to save her and stop gawking, so he leaned over and picked up a small stone about the size of his palm. When the flying ninja came back around to attack again, Naruto put a little something special into his throw and watched with grim satisfaction as the stone flew through the air at impossible speeds to connect with the man's chest, pierce it, and then come back out the other side to do the same to the machine he was using to fly on. The village hidden in the leaves was a total mess. They were under attack from some unknown enemy who could fly using strange devices. It had never dawned on Amaru that she would be in such a situation in her entire life. She had believed that she would simply wander the countryside saving lives here and there with her master and just helping where she could. But this was madness. People were being hit with jutsu and weapons alike. If not that, then falling debris or shrapnel was tearing them apart. Her master had quickly run off to help as many people as he could, but in nth confusion they had gotten separated. Lost with nowhere to do, she buckled down and began to use what she had learned over the years to help people. Some were skeptical of her, though she was used to that. She didn't have one of their forehead protectors, so they knew she wasn't one of them. Then, of course, there were not many people who believed a child skilled enough to actually be of any help. Still, with the prospect of dying, many people learn that they are much more capable of adapting than they had previously believed. When only one person can help save your life, you didn't tend to complain or ask for a second opinion, you just accepted it. At least they were grateful. She couldn't stand patients who did not appreciate the work her and her master did. It was an insult to her very being after all. After she bandaged up her latest patient, a young woman who got too close to a falling paper bomb, she heard the humming sound of something in the air. Knowing what it was, she tried to hide, but there was nowhere to go. Thankfully, their weapons didn't seem all too accurate, or she would be dead now. Unfortunately, the flying ninja was persistent and came back for a second try. Amaru was sure this was the end of the line for her, but then something hit the ninja and he went down hard. She didn't even have to question what had happened. All she knew was the look in his eyes told her he was dead no matter what anyone did. She heard footsteps and pulled out her scalpel in case she needed to defend herself. She wasn't expecting a kid her own age to come around the corner, though. His golden blonde hair, big topaz blue eyes, and strange markings on his face. During her quick once-over, she noticed he lacked a forehead protector that her master revealed to hear indicated a ninja's village affiliation. While she wasn't sure of the shapes on the forehead protectors, she did know that this kid didn't have one, so he couldn't be a ninja. "Hey, you all right?" Amaru was a bit surprised as her grip loosened on her scalpel a bit. It must have been all the fighting because her nerves were on end. To meet someone so relaxed was a bit off for her. Were all ninja like this even when people were dying around them? "Who are you?" Okay, that came out a bit rude, but she couldn't help it. The boy's eyebrow raised a bit, but he grinned nonetheless. "The name is Naruto. I am helping evacuate the civilians and moving patients to the hospital. Hokage's orders, so you're going to have to move." "I can't leave," spoke Amaru as she went back to trying to help the woman. "This woman has shrapnel in her leg, and if left untreated it will move deeper into the muscle. If that were to happen, she would lose function of her leg, possibly her leg, and most likely her life." The boy walked up beside her, which was surprising. Even more surprising, however, was when he began to examine the woman himself. She was a bit insulted, believing he didn't think she was capable of diagnosing a patient. She had years of training after all. After getting done examining the unconscious woman, Naruto nodded his head. "Yes, it does appear so." He paused for a moment to think. "I'll have to remove them quickly, or else we could get trapped by more paper bombs." "You can't just extract shrapnel. That would cause all kinds of damage," shouted Amaru. She tried to stop him by tackling him to the ground, but he was a bit more sturdy than she had anticipated. She ended up being the one knocked to the side, although it hadn't hurt. She got back up and went to try and stop him again, but noticed his hands covered in some kind of strange green energy. He placed his hands over the woman's injuries, and slowly small pieces of metal could be seen poking out of her skin. After another moment, they came out completely. What was even more amazing was the wounds began to heal as well. After a few seconds, the woman looked like she had never been injured in the first place. Amaru was amazed. No, that wasn't a strong enough word for it. She had been informed by her master that ninja had their own types of doctors called medical ninja, but she didn't know how they differed from regular doctors. If this was what they were capable of, no wonder ninja could get so injured in the field and then come home, get rehabilitated, and then deployed again so soon. Once Naruto was done healing the woman, he went to stand up. That was when he heard someone coming. Whoever they were fast, and he quickly pulled out a set of kunai ready for battle. Amaru saw the shift in the boy's demeanor and thought he was about to turn on her. It wasn't until her master came from around the corner, shouting her name, that she realized what was going on. With teary eyes, she quickly got up and ran to her master, where the two of them hugged in a father-daughter-like embrace. "Oh, Amaru, I am so happy you are safe," spoke Shino as he started to examine Amaru for any injuries. "When we got separated, I fear for the worst, but it seems my worries were unfounded." A bit embarrassed by the attention in front of her rescuer, Amaru tried to divert the topic of conversation. "Master Shino, I am fine really. I want you to meet the boy who saved me." Amaru pointed towards Naruto, who hadn't put his kunai away. Shino didn't seem bothered by the kunai and extended a hand. "Thank you, young man. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You have no idea how much Amaru means to me. You have my eternal gratitude for saving her." Naruto looked at the man's hand and put his kunai away before shaking it. "It was no problem," spoke Naruto. "I was happy to help her. The name is Naruto? And you too are?" Shino's eyes got big with surprise. "Oh my word! I can't believe I forgot to introduce myself." With a bit smile, he gestured towards Amaru. "This is Amaru, my medical apprentice, and I am Shino, a traveling doctor." Naruto looked up into the sky. Those ninja who had attacked the village had already retreated a little while ago, but their shapes could still be seen out into the distance. They had left right after he killed that last flying ninja. "Nice to meet the two of you," replied Naruto before looking around. "What are two wandering doctors doing in the Hidden Leaf Village? Going to join our village or something?" Shino smiled but shook his head. "No, we were just stopping by to pick up some supplies. The Hidden Leaf Village does produce the highest quality in medical supplies after all." "Yes, well, we do have the legendary Tsunade in our village after all. She keeps our medical teams up to par, which is something I think everyone is happy about after today." Master," shouted Amaru as she walked up to her master's side. "You should have seen what he was able to do. He used some kind of green energy and pulled shrapnel out of that woman's leg over there, without hurting her, then her wounds just healed up like that." Shino looked from his apprentice to Naruto and stared at him for a bit. He chuckled lightly before smiling. "Wow, that is impressive. It is rare for someone to have such skill in medical ninjutsu at such a young age. Your parents must be very proud." "What you knew about that stuff, master?" "Of course, I have been around for a long time and have studied medicine for almost as long. It is not surprising that I have run into medical ninja before and have learned a bit about what it is." Amaru was amazed. "Wow! I wish I could do that as well." Naruto grinned. "If you became a ninja, you could learn how to do it." He looked out towards all of the ninja jumping around. "I have to go and report to the Hokage. If your business is concluded, I suggest you leave before you get locked in by the Chunin." "Thank you for the heads up," spoke Shino. "Come along, Amaru. It is time we move on." Amaru nodded her head but gave one last look behind to see Naruto jump up on a rooftop and go running around the houses. She was amazed at his potential and secretly wished they could have stayed for a bit longer.